We say things that don't mean anything, but thanks for listening. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Say Things, episode 264. Sunsman here with Cinder, and we have a very special guest, Mr. Richard Lewis. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm good. This is like essentially my community service obligation to the Dota Esports community, isn't it? So part of my rehabilitation now that I work in your game, I have to come out and, kiss the various rings of the Kingmakers. So I'm here. That's why I'm here.
Great to have you here.
On a serious note, like I'm fucking blown away to be on this podcast. I've listened to every episode and obviously known Cinder in a long, long time. I know we just met for the first time at a Valahia, but I've known Cinder since he was a player on Mouse Sports, as it was back then. I think I met him at a Cologne, one of those Gamescom or something events.
Sounds likely, yeah.
Yeah, it was
a long time ago.
You were a cool cat back then, so just good to be good to be hanging out with you two guys.
Good stuff. Okay, so just to keep with tradition, beginning of every guest episode, we do a rapid fire initiation. I give you two choices, and you pick quickly. All right. Most people suck at this, Richard. I feel like you'll be good.
Right. Go.
They take forever to choose. Okay.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
CS:GO or CS2?
CS2.
Oh, that blew me away. Okay. Right or left?
Oh, this ink.
Right or left? Punch or choke?
Choke.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Man, you chose everything incorrectly. That's incredible. Incredible.
All right, thanks for coming.
So is this like the Blade Runner replicant test? Have I fucked up? Is that it?
Yeah, we're just cutting this. We're cutting this shit.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, there's a rationale to everything I said. CS2 is better than CSGO because it's essentially future-proof and can go places CSGO can't because of spaghetti code. Right or left, just I'm right-handed, so it makes sense.
It's good.
What was the other one? Punch or choke.
Yeah.
You might not knock an opponent out with a choke, but an oxygen-deprived opponent will always be unconscious. And cake or pie, I feel like cake is very stodgy. You can't eat a delicious key lime pie on. You can eat a delicious key lime pie on a hot day. You can't eat a Black Forest Gatto on a hot day.
I feel like for any British people, they're going to pick pie, right? I feel like that's a standard. So
but I'm not thinking. You're thinking I'm thinking of British pies, but you forget I lived in America, so I'm thinking of American pies. I'm not thinking of steak and onion. I'm thinking of fucking delicious like cherry or key lime or
cherry pie is good. I'll give you that. That one's very good.
And justify all my positions as per usual.
Yes, thank you. So,
nice sponsor in the background, Shannon. That's clever.
But what's the sponsor?
Like
nice.
That's right.
Really
isn't
it?
Yeah. Okay, so I figured instead of me introducing you, it would be funnier if. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't do our Patreon. This is almost
dude,
I was like, okay, when are the patrons coming, Shannon?
My bad, patrons. So as usual, our beautiful patrons that pay a lot of money per month for some reason to support us, the guest gets the choice as to whether to read them out, and nobody has said no yet, Cinder, which is shocking. Richard,
I'll definitely do this.
Go ahead, please.
So this is the In Bruges tier.
That's right.
Are there multiple tiers? Will I be reading multiple tiers?
No, this is just one tier. One tier.
This is the one.
Okay. By the way, In Bruges, great movie. Mechazor, Empire of Dirt, 10 out of 10 Goldblums, Malicious Damage, Lakers in 7, 2027. Amish Toaster, saw you in Raleigh, motherfuckers. No Madder Than a Hatter, that's a good one like that. Crownfall Enjoyer, Captain Broccoli, Sun Snugget Boy, STGC Daniel. Don't know what's going on there. Pepper Balls, my old nickname. T-Coil. Vlad, let's have Puppy on the podcast. Hard agree. Disco Farm D, the Mega Pope. Topical. Shark, Janie, Dop, Wooden Aftertaste, Anonymous, and Denmark has a word with no direct English translation, which I'm not going to say just in case. Mr. Niebling. So there you go.
Okay, do you want to spell out the letters one by one?
No, I don't. No,
Okay,
it's got.
I can't see it right now. I'm guessing the word is Hygge.
Yes.
It is, yes.
Okay, yeah.
It sounds like not something I want to say. So
Okay.
You've said worse, Richard. Let's be real. All right. Cinder, can you
I mean,
translate?
only on this episode with the answers to my initial questions, but everything else I've said has been pretty fucking righteous in my opinion.
It's like an all-encompassing word we use in Danish for just a comfortable good time with other people. So if something is hygge, then it's like, the idea of like an
that's the other thing. I would have butchered the pronunciation as well. I would
sitting together at the campfire. That would be something that's hygge, right? Or having a cold beer under the shower, or
Yeah. All right. That's cool. Well, hoping this episode's going to be hygge.
That's right.
That's right.
Not bad. That's not bad.
All right, Richard, introduce yourself. Who are you?
Richard Lewis, 20-year-long esports veteran. Sorry, it sounds like I'm taking a leak. I am just pouring water. Most of that was spent done weirder things on stream. Been most of that as a journalist, but obviously I've done pretty much like everyone who works in esports. I've done a bit of everything. So I've done commentary. I used to be a CS caster. Then I moved into being a CS analyst. Then I ended up being a host because no one wanted to do that, essentially. And then I've hosted multiple games, not just CS. Obviously, Dota is where the Dota fans would know me from, assuming they don't follow anything else. But I've done stuff like Heroes of the Storm, did a PUBG event, did a Fortnite event. Not proud of it.
You should be ashamed.
Rocket League. Yeah, so done a little bit of everything, and now I just live in sort of a pseudo semi-retirement where, because for some reason overweight bald weirdos are back in vogue, I can work the entire PGL circuit, which is really good. And I also have my own Substack and a YouTube channel and a Twitch stream, and I just kind of rake in the income through that because people like listening to me talk for whatever reason. So.
How does it feel
that's my life.
To be the most famous Richard Lewis now, that the great comedian Richard Lewis, who on the final season of Curb legitimately looked like a walking corpse, but he did pass this last year, and now you're the most famous.
Yeah, I literally brought this point up before because one of the things that always used to happen was I used to get tagged in on tweets from other celebrities and friends of Richard Lewis. And they would they'd be tagging me in great cameo on like fucking, Curb or whatever it might be, great appearance on, whatever late night talk show he'd been on. I used to get that quite a lot. And then obviously the day he passed, that was really, really bad because first of all, there were people DMing me, like celebrities DMing me saying like, gonna miss you, which is like, I always think that's a weird thing to do. People do that though. Obviously I'm dead, so but then on top of that, there was like people publicly writing obituaries, really poignant, tender, heartfelt obituaries, then tagging at R. Lewis reports, right? Which is like, so it's just a bald esports guy just in the thing. And then on top of that as well, people started to get confused and thought I'd died.
Right.
The important esports Richard Lewis had died, and so I was getting people like asking, ringing up, like, "Oh God, is it true? What's that?" So that was a nightmare. That was a horrible day for me, which is what I care about, not the real Richard. Lewis.
Fuck him, the walking corpse. I mean, he lived long enough. Let's be real.
I'm not gonna lie, it's not a popular opinion, but he wasn't very good in the last season of Kirby. You could see the illness was affecting his performance. In my mind, I would rather he didn't do it at all. In fact, actually, the last season or two of Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of sucks ass compared to the early one.
I thought the season before last was bad. I thought the last season was good because they wrapped, not to spoil here, the whole Seinfeld finale that was a big controversy back in the day. The fact that they kind of I love that they redid that correctly, so to speak.
Yes.
So I did enjoy that part.
But it wasn't really a finale for Curb Your Enthusiasm. It was a belated finale for Seinfeld, essentially. But that's fine.
That's fair.
That's fine.
Of course, Cinder doesn't know what either show is, so
I may have stumbled upon Seinfeld before.
Oh, okay. That's really good.
If I had to
I've seen some Seinfeld.
If I had to describe Seinfeld in a word, Cinder, and I'd probably use the word hygge.
Yeah,
you might. It means that it's just a really cozy, good time with friends. Really enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah,
you should check it out.
I watched a little bit. It kind of is that vibe, though. That's true.
I mean, Seinfeld was before its time, man. So many shows spawned off of that thing. That's one of the best TV shows of all time. Anyway, going off tangent as usual. Usually we start with your life, starting at the beginning, but I wanted to ask one question before we get into it, just to get a quick temperature check, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are considered very polarizing.
Which I don't understand.
Okay, I was going to ask you, why do you think that you are polarizing?
Well, I've had 20 years to essentially theory craft it. Like, a lot of people, I don't know if you guys do this, but a lot of people in esports and the entertainment industry, I guess, as well, which have had a little bit of experience of working tangentially to when we did Counter-Strike on television for Turner.
Which we'll talk about for sure.
I find most people have like two personalities, and they have the public facing persona, which is very often either, depending as is appropriate, a more hyper real version of the real selves, or it's a actually pared down version, more solemn and dignified version. It just depends which one works better for them. But ultimately, they have a public facing persona that says the right things, does the right things. And that's just something you have to have if you're going to work in a public facing industry. Then you have the real you. And the real you can often be, again, in the entertainment industry, it can be a real piece of shit. Like, I mean, there's a lot of fakes and phonies I've come across in esports where, the esports fan says, oh, they're the best. I love these guys. I fucking love these guys. They're so nice and so kind and so wholesome. And then they're fucking monsters backstage, when you're doing these events, or they do terrible things.
Me and Cinderin in a nutshell.
Yeah. That's right.
No, but certainly day 9.
All right, we're off to a hot start here.
Yeah, certainly day 9 was one of them. One of the biggest divas I've ever met. I don't give a fuck. Like, everybody knows it's true, so whatever. He was just a difficult person to work with. And like, first time I met him, it was when it was at a very early DreamHack. He had like demanded that the StarCraft stage was called the Day 9 stage, just a reasonable thing to demand for someone else's video game, I guess. And he was the big deal. It was when he was doing all the Day 9 dailies. I was a in the trenches journalist. I went up to meet him, and as I was talking to him, he like just sort of held his hand up in my face like that. And I said, "Oh, well, I don't want to bother you. I was just trying to say hello." He did that. And then it was like he like closed the laptop he had on his knee, and then he just got up and started screaming in my face about how dare I disturb him. He's like got prep to do, and like, who the fuck do I think I am? And all. It's like he wasn't in a dressing room, he was in like a public area. And then obviously I've heard a million stories since from other people who've worked with him. But like, if you were to talk to the average esports fan, they think, oh, Sean's amazing. He's a super cool, wholesome guy. That's fine. I mean, he's done a very good job of curating who he is publicly. I have not done that. I never had a public persona because I was never expecting to be a public person, because why would anyone expect that, from a working class family in Britain, right? Like, I'm meant to, just do a regular job and shut the fuck up and just, knock out 2 kids and then, that's my life. That's the blueprint for people like me. So I never expected to have an audience,
I think, we talked about this in person when we met for the first time at the last Wallachia, but I see some parallels with you and me in some respect, like different paths, but kind of start out maybe very similar, because I consider, again, self-evaluating is really hard, but I consider myself someone that just says what's on my mind. Like, I don't really hold back too much. I've learned to do that a bit in the last 10 years, let's say, but I don't think I've changed that much. Of course, I'm biased, so I could be horribly wrong. But like Cinderin is, when I look at Cinderin, he is the literal same person you see on stream versus in person, right? Like literally the same. But I agree that for some people, there's a stark difference between who they are behind doors, closed doors, versus who they are on stream. So I can appreciate that.
I think with Cinderin, there's ultimately nothing to cloak. Like, he just is a genuinely like good,
He's just
wholesome
a
guy.
fucking robot. Yeah.
Who's the guest of this
robot,
episode?
Nerd.
Why are you evaluating me? We're doing Richard right now.
Okay?
Well, no.
This is
it's
all
important for people to know an outsider perspective, right, about who you are.
Right.
There's no skeletons in Cinderin's closet.
So real talk. Let's get back on track. So you've said that you're in your experience or in your perspective, you're more or less the same on and off camera.
Yeah.
So back to the whole polarizing thing. Why do you think people think you're polarizing then? Do you think that's because you're not like what Shannon said, that you're not beating around the bush or anything, or?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion if you give 20 years of your life to something, you get to have an honest opinion about it. And if you don't like that opinion, fuck you. I just think like that's fair. That's just fair, reasonable. Like you know, if somebody was telling me like they worked in a particular industry for 20 years and they had thoughts about how they could do things differently and, you know, the state of the industry and they started saying it and it was a bit, you know, delicate around my sensibilities for whatever reason, I wouldn't begrudge them their opinion. I wouldn't tell them they were an idiot for having that opinion. Wouldn't tell them, you know, that it was controversial.
You did just say fuck you for having that opinion though, against me, right?
Yeah,
but you mean that in like a more apathetic sense instead of
no. I mean, right. So what I'm saying is, fuck people for saying you can't have an opinion after 20 years experience.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And a lot of esports fans, they do this weird thing where they exist in a quantum state where it's like they tell you, someone with however many years of expertise in a field, you don't know what you're talking about. Them with exactly 0 years of expertise in same field, they're in a position to not only judge and evaluate you, but they also know better. And they know more. And it's like, guys, these things don't, the scales on this logic do not balance. And so,
do you consider it the same idea with like pro sports trying to get, we'll get into this, like the TNT type CS broadcast stuff a little later, but the idea of these big orgs coming in thinking they know exactly how esports is run and they just try to copy paste and it's just never fucking works, right?
It was like when everyone was like circle jerking, oh, Mark Cuban's here. Like, what? Mark Cuban's here. Mark Cuban's going to give an opinion on esports. Like, that has as much value as me giving an opinion on investment banking, right? Like, we understand that, right? Like, he is not an expert in this field. And yet, every time, any celebrity that's had a modicum of success externally to esports says something about esports. We're so validation starved. We're so pathetic as an industry. We just like, oh, Mark Cuban's talking about us. I remember when everyone had that meltdown when Joe Rogan said, for most people, pursuing a career in esports is a waste of time, right? And everybody lost their shit. And I thought it was interesting because you guys just said pretty much the same thing at the Q&A in Raleigh. Well, Cinderin did rather. Like, you have to understand that there's so many people who've come before with more experience and more skill set that you're going to have to be really good, really original, really talented, or really dedicated so you outlast people to get anywhere. And only 1% get to make a living out of this to begin with. But everybody what's lost their shit. Like, how dare Joe Rogan say this? And I'm just thinking the entire time, he's right. Like, what other assessment could you make? And so it's like I said, we have a tendency to do one or two things. If somebody comes in and like panders to the gallery and says esports is great and it's the future, oh, that would incredible insight, Mark Cuban. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Joe Rogan, you know, says something like, oh, you know, it's almost certainly a waste of everybody's time to try and go hard in the paint for it. Boo, boo, boo. And then it's kind of like, probably your favorite industry person agrees with him, but doesn't feel comfortable saying it. So, yeah. And also, by the way, Joe Rogan doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
I was going to say,
I was just about to. I was like, well, where's?
Yeah. But he's right twice a day.
But he just so happened to be right in this one occasion I'm using as a reference point. So, yeah, I feel like basically when it comes to whether or not, like me, I consider myself to have a pretty good read on the state of esports at any given moment in time. But if I say things that fan bases don't like, it's always wrong. It's always bad. It's always fuck Richard Lewis. And unfortunately, I feel like there's just a general immaturity among esports fans. They skew younger. And they're more sensitive to criticisms about things they love. Essentially, esports fans are like K-pop fans. That's what we're dealing with. And, you know, I've come to just accept that now. 5 years ago, I'd probably be fighting these kids on Twitter. Now I just, like, whatever. Like,
now it's X. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Now it's X. Yeah.
Everything's different now.
Do you think, I keep going on tangents, but this is interesting to me. If I had an opinion on, let's say, Fortnite esports? Does that have any value, or do you consider it to be like an NBA player having an opinion on baseball? Like it's just a completely different sport, right? Different ecosystem.
I think you would definitely have some like institutional knowledge, some structural knowledge that would be worthwhile. And also, I think contrast is very important. You know, for the growth of any industry, contrasting it with, you know, branches of itself, like why does this work and why doesn't that's how you get growth. I think that's important. But yeah, I think if you were to give an opinion about like having never followed the scene whatsoever, and then you were going to go, oh, this player's going to win the Fortnite World Cup, or the TSM should pick up this player, or, you know, whatever it might be, then that's a very suspect opinion. And I might want to look into whether or not there's some secret reason why I should entrust that your opinion is good and valid. But I definitely think having a lot of experience in another esport should at least give you a foot in the door, a courtesy I wouldn't extend to a normie from outside of our world. You know?
Right. Okay, fair enough. Okay, now we can get started with your effectively your origin story. So you can give the TLDR if you want, whatever you're comfortable with. Where you said you lived in the U.S.? I had no idea. I mean, when you say you lived in the U.S., is that the TNT thing or?
Yeah, I did Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia for about 2.5.
All right, let's start earlier than that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, look, the esports origin story was, when a university wanted to be a journalist, because I realized I wasn't going to be a fiction writer, and so it was a way to make
fiction writer.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wasn't good enough. I had like a bunch of, I mean, to be fair, I was looking at some of it last night. I got a big memorabilia box out. I had to get this, which we'll probably talk about at some point, right? And I had like a bunch of old manuscripts and stuff, and I realized like a lot of it was quite bad. But I'd had like some rejections. I thought I was a very good writer. Obviously, all writers think that. And then it was like, well, it's not going to happen. How can I make money off writing? So I started studying journalism and was at university and switched degrees so I could go and do that. And
sorry to interrupt. Is that still something you'd want to do in the future, maybe?
Well, now the beauty of it is because I've got my own kind of baked-in audience, I could probably like what they used to call vanity publishing, although everyone self-publishes now. But I could probably publish one of my terrible fiction books and get enough people to buy it that it was actually worth the energy. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's entirely possible. But I'd like to think I'm gonna write something good, just one good thing.
When you say fiction, what type of fiction would you want to write? Out of curiosity, because I know Pyrian took this route, right? And he did. Was it science? It was science fiction, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not so much science fiction. It's more like I don't know, what would you call it? Like slice of life kind of drama stuff, like semi-autobiographical. Like I grew up, you know, like wanting to be Bukowski, essentially. Bukowski or Thompson. You know, one of those would have done. You shoot for greatness and you always fall short, but you gotta swing for it. But yeah, it would be something like that, you know. And probably you know, I did a lot of poetry back in the day as well. I used to be part of I used to be part of like a poetry and literature collective here in Birmingham. We used to go on a radio station called New Style FM. I used to be in a DJ group, and it was called the Quantum Rug Traders. We used to play like crazy fucking music at like 2 a.m. for all the people getting out the nightclubs and stuff. I was very into that like bohemian shit. That's like, for me, esports, it's essentially the great schism in my life, because after 2 decades, I'm so jaded and bored of writing the same thing. Organization does terrible thing.
Right.
Organization, you know, tournament operator refuses to pay players. Organization refuses to honor contract for player. Manager is monster in private. It's like, it's all the same archetype of story, because no one learns a fucking thing in esports, and the same bad shit just keeps happening over and over again. So it's super boring. Like, I really struggle now to sit down at a keyboard and go from start to finish on an esports article, when I used to be able to do it all the time, because it's just so like, I know I've read this one before. I'm using, you could just switch the names around. So it's not as interesting as the fiction stuff. And I'm kind of finding myself heading back towards that as I get older and writing about other things. Because honestly, like, esports kind of feels fucking really played out.
How about writing esports fiction so that when there's actual drama, you just make up stuff?
I do that for a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Esports Express.
About me a lot of the time. But I love Ken. That's fine. No hard feelings there. What we could do is, and I've definitely pitched this when we've been having a few drinks after an event. There is a great esports sitcom to be written, and the thing that we would know is they're just true stories. You know.
Have you seen the show called Players by any chance?
I have seen that. Yes.
That is a fucking god tier show. That is an esports sitcom, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, and I don't watch it religiously, but I think you have to be aware of the general zeitgeist of where entertainment's kind of heading at any given moment in time. So if a show's popular, it's probably popular for a reason, even if you don't vibe with it. So I've watched some episodes of it. But yeah, it's like, yeah, there's definitely... They did do an esports sitcom, I'm pretty sure. There was some horrible American entity did it, and I can't even remember what it was called.
Okay, I'm going to chat GPT this real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, do that.
I actually think which one you're talking about.
Yeah, you know which one? It had like some streamers making cameos in it and shit.
Yeah, it was like it was like a fictional setup around a tournament that a team was participating in, right?
Correct.
This sounds extremely familiar, but I don't remember what it was called. I also remember it not being very good, but
no, it was diabolical.
Okay, well, the first one I came up with was Players, but that's not the one.
No.
There's one in development, so that's not it.
That's not it. It was definitely... It might have just been a pilot. It might not have even got options.
Yeah, maybe it was just one episode, actually.
Yeah.
Good Game in 2017.
Good Game. I want to say that's it.
Show follows an eternal optimist and miserable slacker who recruits a team of misfits to take on the esports world by competing in the biggest kill core tournament of the year, Blood Match.
This is it. This is the one. I can't believe it's 2017. Fucking hell, I'm old.
Wow.
That's
I'm going to have to find that somehow. That sounds really bad. Yeah, and good.
That was
Shannon, you just watched nothing, huh? How have you not seen that?
I mean, what, you've seen it?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. Wow.
I've actually seen this.
That's incredible.
Anyway. Like Richard was saying, I think it's just one episode or something. And it wasn't great. So you're not missing out.
Early games, Richard. Back on track.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my bad.
No, that's my bad. I'm the one keep going on tangents here.
Early games, I mean, so probably like everybody else, what was popular when I was at, I'd say everyone of like my generation, which is on the cusp of the Gen X's first wave of millennials, that was when online gaming first started popping off, right? So you had like a lot of, what the fuck was it? Like Star Wars Galaxies was like an MMO that people were playing pre-World of Warcraft. There was obviously RuneScape, whatever. I played a lot of the FPS stuff. I played a lot of the Ghost Recon and obviously the Counter-Strike when that came out, Counter-Strike beta. But I have to be honest, I didn't play a lot of online video games when I was younger because I was a fucking big Chad jock. I used to go out and play rugby on a weekend. That's how I used to spend my time. We didn't even have access to the internet really where I lived. Like it was at a time when you didn't have an internet connection in your house unless you had money. So if I wanted to use the internet for study, I had to go into the university library and, download a bunch of stuff and, come out. But yeah, so we didn't even have an internet connection in the house where we were at university. It just wasn't something we did. We used to play LAN games of Football Manager.
Man, Europeans love that fucking game, don't they? Yeah. Holy shit!
It doesn't appeal to me at all.
Well, if it was esports related, would you be interested, Cinderin?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not really. It's funny.
Not
a game for me.
If you go on Steam, there's a ton of esports management games now. Actually.
Oh, really?
It's really funny. Huh. Yeah. None are Dota themed. There's a lot of League themed ones, but there's one called Esports Godfather. I'm looking at it now. And this is it's a deck builder and a MOBA game at the same time. And you have to get players that specialize in certain heroes and beat the meta. Sounds terrible.
That sounds really poorly made.
Yeah, but it's got a very positive rating, dude. So
Probably because no other competition.
Did you not play anything before PC then? Did you not have like a console or something?
Yeah, console. But I mean, again, used to just play Tekken with the boys. You know, Tekken and Pro Evolution Soccer. You know, and used to get high all day and just play those, and then like go out and you either hit the gym or go out drinking. That was pretty much it. It was a very limited set of activities back then that you did.
It was a simpler time, honestly.
Well, also true, but I mean, students didn't have a lot of money back then. I'm guessing they don't now. I don't know, but I was certainly in an income bracket that was like gated off from, doing anything while I was at university other than sort of paying off debts and what have you. So yeah, I didn't do a lot, and I wasn't interested. What exposed me to online gaming really was when I graduated. It was around about 2004, 2005, I want to say. And that was when Counter-Strike Source had just come out. It had just been sent to the LAN cafes in 2004.
So you barely played, based on your story at least, beta / version 1.6.
Yeah, like, we used to fuck around with that stuff, but it just didn't really hold my interest. And then it was like, I was the editor of the student magazine. So I was like, and I got pulled off music reviews because of something I said, which was very inappropriate. And
I'm sure it was, yeah. Especially if it was 20 years ago.
I mean, listen, it was basically, I was implying, it was about Whitney Houston. No. And my review of one of her singles was basically implying that, maybe things that are happening in her life, it's karma, essentially. Without putting too fine a point on it. It was the early noughties, you could say.
Her life was fucked. Holy shit.
Yeah, her life was
whatever
tragic,
her husband's name was. That guy's a rock.
Yeah, Bobby Brown.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But anyway, I gave it like 1 out of 10 and published that as a review. And we got a phone call from like the people that send out the CDs, like NUS. It's called National Union of Students. And they said, like, you just can't do the reviews anymore. Like we're gonna have to cut you off from the, receiving the free CDs because of like what you've said's really upset like feminists, and it's really upset like sociologists, and it's really upset like every group, so you've got to go. But I'm the editor, and they're like, well, you have to make a public show of essentially firing yourself from the music reviews. And so I was like, fine. So I had to bring in somebody else to do the music reviews. And then I was like, I'll review the computer games instead. And that was kind of the start of the crossover. And that was when I learned about esports and South Korea and LAN cafes and competitive online video gaming. And the first thing I covered was Counter-Strike Source in 2004/2005. But didn't really have a lot of interest in.
So then the real starting point was almost like a Total Biscuit type review, except not on video format. I assume it was just written.
Yeah, written. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I was pitching. I pitched a series of articles to various magazines at the time, and it was going to be called The Noob. And basically, what I was going to do is each month, or however often we would do it, I would infiltrate an online community, be a noob, and then like write up things I found and discovered for the benefit of people that wanted to maybe play that game but were anxious about going into that community. And so I said I've been playing Counter-Strike Source, and there's a lot to learn in here. It's kind of a crazy scene. Lots of people doing crazy stuff, and it can be very hard to like negotiate the landscape. And so a magazine said, we'll take a look at it if you do us a draft. I did the draft. They fucking hated it. And that was a total waste of everybody's time. But because I'd made friends, having played the game, I kind of like stuck around, and suddenly I found myself, I had to fuck off back to working in a call center. And I found myself over weekend, if money was a bit tight and I didn't want to go out and have a drink, I'd load up Counter-Strike, hang out with the guys, go on TeamSpeak 2 as it was then or whatever, and talk to these total strangers on the internet, and that's how I kind of got drawn in.
Okay, and then how did that transition to the next stage? What was the next stage even?
There was a blog called Source Junkie, which had a tasteful logo of a syringe going into someone's vein.
Nice.
Very tasteful at the time, and it was run by a bunch of like nutcases. Because like one of the things I really loved about old school esports compared to now is everybody that dedicated their free time to it. It just felt like you had to have something wrong with you. You had to be a bit fucking crazy because it was so stupid to take any of it seriously.
Well, something I also find, and I'm sure you did as well, there's so many people that you worked with back in the day that have become like way bigger than you thought. That, like, an example for me was, so I took a break from CS 1.6 and I played a game called Firearms, which was a relatively popular mod in Half-Life. And it did really well there. And I was a leader of a team that won the Cal Championship. And one of my players on the team, his name was Midway. I'm guessing you know who that is.
Yes, went on to be one of the instrumental staff at GotFrag.
That's right. So he helped start GotFrag, which a lot of people might not know what that is. Like one of the original esports blogs, I guess you could call it. And then he went on to start Dota Buff. So it's like a pretty big figure in the industry. But he's like, he was on my Firearms team. It's so fucking random, right? But I'm sure you have a ton of people that you've come across that have had similar trajectories.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting one because, I mean, GotFrag was huge, and I worked at GotFrag for a time.
Oh, really?
I got them nominated for what was the Proto Esports Awards. It was the Turtle Entertainment Esports Awards back then. I got nominated for an article I wrote. I did like an investigative piece for them about some scammer that was like he'd gone away. He'd scammed people out of a LAN where you had to pay to enter, and then he fled with the money. And then he came back 2 years later running an esports org, and he just used a different gamer name, and nobody knew. He just got away with it.
Right. Wow.
And then someone who was at that LAN, because people turned up to the LAN and they were going like, "So we're here for the competition," and the LAN cafe are going, "We don't know what you're talking about. What competition?"
Good old esports, man. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Somebody who went there saw him and went, "That's the guy," and so. We ended up doing a whole investigative piece on it, and that got nominated for an award.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So GotFrag, I spent time at GotFrag. It was pretty much during the CGS years. Well, rather, when the CGS was first announced, I was at GotFrag because they were like fighting.
I bring up the CGS every now and then. Can you just give everybody a really short TLDR what that was?
That was the Championship Gaming Series. It was the Murdochs of Fox News fame. News Corps essentially decided they were going to drop $60 million stretched over 5 years into esports to create a multi-game tournament that was regional based with franchises, and it lasted 2.5 years before everyone got fired by email in the middle of the night.
I remember watching that and being super hyped, but do you feel like, you said Murdoch, I didn't know, because it was DirecTV. Did he own DirecTV? I have no idea.
I think it was just the people like funding it. I don't know if DirecTV was part of their portfolio, but the $60 million came from News Corps, and that was like basically Murdoch's kid.
Okay. So I think a few things here about CGS and why it failed. God, I wonder how many people actually give a shit about this topic, because I find it so interesting, because I never find anybody that knows what this is, right? What do you think the reasons it failed? Because one thing I vividly remember, first of all, I think it was before its time. Like, I don't think
definitely
that anything like that could have worked anyway, even if you did it correctly. But I think they did some things horribly incorrectly. Like, for example, Counter-Strike, which was their flagship game. No offense, maybe I shouldn't name them. They had people that didn't know Counter-Strike casting it. Like, you cannot have people that don't know the game casting the game, plain and simple.
Specifically, you're talking about Marcus and Jonathan, right? So, and it's fine to say it, because I think if you were to talk to DJ Wheat now, I think he realizes, like, I mean, look, Marcus is really cool.
DJ Wheat, he was play-by-play, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's more forgivable than, like, you have a big name in Fatality, who he's huge, don't get me wrong, and I understand why they did it, because it's like, some higher up is like, oh, we just need a big name. Knows nothing about Counter-Strike. It's literally the only FPS he doesn't play, right?
Yeah.
But
what they thought as well was, because the games all had guns.
Yeah, true.
It was transferable. I know they literally thought that. They didn't understand that, like, Quake and Counter-Strike, it's to call it apples and oranges is generous. But
do you think a format like that, like the idea, it's almost like a video game Olympics in a way. Do you think that could ever work in modern day?
No.
Did you like the idea at the time?
No, hated it. Well, what I did, I believe the kids call it selling out or getting the bag. Because what happened there was I was vehemently against it back when I was on the periphery. And then I got hit up by Cadred, which was the European rival to Gottfrag, essentially. And they were like, listen, do you want to, write some articles around the CGS and we'll pay you? Now, I wasn't getting any money at Gottfrag. I've got a hilarious email I like to read from time to time, which was basically a guy, I think his name was Single Coil. I applied for a paid position while I was at Gottfrag volunteering, and they didn't know who I was.
Esports.
And, yeah, and I said, I just got you nominated for an award. So I'd like to think I'm maybe at the top of the pecking order when it comes to this potential job. And, we had a back and forth about whether or not it was fair that I got money for the work that I'd already done. And basically, he told me in no uncertain terms, people like you, aka people who want to get paid for their labor, you're ruining the esports industry. That's what they said. So Cadred seemed very, like, this is a good deal. So I went there, got sent to the CGS, which was in Birmingham, funnily enough, where I live now. They were having what they called the Combine, because it was all very American driven. Everyone was trying
and all
out
that. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
From a spectator standpoint, that was cool. That was really cool to see.
Oh, sure. And they put me in a shitty hotel, and while I was waiting in the lobby, there was some guy with a strong Northern Irish accent, and what was it? Forza racer guy called Neo Jake. And basically, I was stood behind him while he was checking in. And, journalists always should be asking questions and talking to people. So I just talked to him about what he was doing. And he said he'd quit his job at a Blockbuster. And he'd sold all of his shit to get the ferry fare so he could come over and compete to try and get this salary as a Forza player in the CGS. And so went back to the room, was like, fuck it, I've been here 5 minutes. I've already got my first story, knock out 1,200 words, and I can start drinking. This is fucking great. So did it, handed it in, and then I got a call from the editor at CGS, a guy called Brian Karpov. And he called me up and he said, this piece is amazing. It's exactly what we're looking for to help sell the league. It's a human interest story. We just don't get these. It's always bogged down in the minutia, talking about the game, talking about the mechanics. You're talking about this guy's experience. It's really compelling. And we'd like to give you a promotion. I've been there a day, right? So I was like, oh, okay. And by the way, this sounds like I'm glazing myself, but don't worry, it ends terribly. So I okay, fine, fuck it. So I went from being a features writer to senior features writer. And now my stuff was going to get bylined and prioritized in the pecking order. And then when we went through to the post-combine part, which was where it was filmed in a TV studio where they filmed Robot Wars, I met a young man called Too Good, who you'll all be familiar with. So for all of the Dota fans that are nodding off so far in the episode, there you go. This is a through road into the story. And Too Good was the video guy. He used to do the interviews, but he would do the recaps, and he had to do 3 recaps every day. And you know what James is like. He's cheeky, he's funny, he's wanting to do a bit more with the content than what it is. He wants to elevate it, and they just weren't vibing with that. And so they said to me while I was in the press room, have you ever done anything on camera? And I went, not really. And they said, well, do you want to have a go? And I said, okay. So they brought me in, and I was, hi, I'm Richard Lewis, and did that. And then basically they said, this is cool, we'll just use this guy. We're already paying him a salary. And so I ended up taking a job from James. That was how I met him.
Sure, he was happy with that.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, he never said anything bad about it, and we've always had a good relationship. I don't think he gave too much of a fuck, really. I think they found something else for him to do.
I guess that does sound like Too Good, not giving a fuck. Yeah.
And then ultimately, by the end of the first season, I wrote an article, and this is where it all ends horribly. I wrote an article about the London Mint CS team. They'd had a fist fight in their team house because it's Counter-Strike. I think it was over, someone had left the milk out or something. It was really trivial. And they'd had a massive fist fight over it, right? And essentially the team that had really, really good source players on it, the team was like fucking done. They were just at each other's throats. They all hated each other. And so I wrote an article saying there's all this internal friction, internal strife. They've even come to blows. You know, they're going to flame out at the event. And the editor said, we can't publish this. And I was like, why not? It's great. It's exactly what you want. Human interest, the stress, the strains. It makes the league seem unprofessional. And I was going, well, that's what you've got. That's my article this week or whatever. And they said, well, you need to write another one. And I said, well, I'm not. So that's what you've got. And then they published another article written by, I think it was Goody, Max Silver, who's the poker player now. He wrote an article, but they put my face and my byline on it.
What the heck?
So I went apoplectic. I went fucking, it's journalistic ethics violation 101. I went mental. I went crazy about it. So I was on very thin ice. And then somebody, as you probably know, I like to drink and I like to party. And somebody dredged up an old photo of me from like an iSeries where I was like chugging a beer with my trousers around my ankles. And they like sent it in to CGS, and they essentially used that as a predicate to get rid of me. And I said, well, you can't find me. I quit. Fuck you.
Wow. And
there you go. And then, so that was my CGS journey from start to finish. It was, I flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's very interesting. We talked about this briefly at Wallachia, but I feel very strongly that, I mean, CGS was in a way before its time, but also set esports back a bit because you have all this like non-endemic sponsors coming into the scene and they kind of blow their money, right? So it's not, so it kind of sets things back. I feel like the modern day version of that is OWL, the way that Overwatch kind of like, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is why esports is on like a downward trajectory right now, like a downward dip, but I feel like it definitely has a part in it. Would you agree with that?
100%.
I don't think Shannon is qualified to talk about Overwatch since it's not his game. I'm not.
That's true.
I'm not sure you can have it. You don't really get to have an opinion.
Grain
Can we
of
get
salt.
Mark Cuban on the line? What does Mark Cuban think about the OWL?
Yeah. Let's go, Mark. Let's get him on. No, I mean, he's definitely right. I don't know what you think, Sind, but
I agree.
Yeah. You have to understand. I mean, what CGS essentially did was it simultaneously put us on the map. And one of the things I learned from that time was, like, you can't trust anyone to gatekeep esports. And I think gatekeeping, it's got a negative connotation, but I think gatekeeping is a very positive thing. Whenever anyone says, oh, you shouldn't gatekeep, I go like, well, you know, if a security guard stops a weirdo from walking into a school playground, that's a good type of gatekeeping, right? So gatekeeping can be good. To keep negative people out of a space you want to flourish is a good thing. And so I've never had an issue with that. And unfortunately, nobody was gatekeeping esports back at this time. They just saw dollar signs. A lot of the OGs, the first gen esports people, you know, their marriages were on the fucking rocks. They'd put all their own money. They'd ran up debt to run esports organizations. CGS comes along, and the same people that are going to esports events wearing fucking tuxedos and trying to talk to kids, you know, like trying to communicate with a young audience while dressed like they're at the fucking Oscars. Those are the same people that essentially sold out to the big money. And then what that brought about was TV executives and money men making terrible decisions about the direction of the game. Counter-Strike, a first-person shooter, the best of all time, is being shown in third person.
At CGS, they did that?
Yep.
Wow.
And I'll tell you the exact story as to why they did that. Basically, one of the executives, he did a test screening, and the test screening was his wife. This is 100% true. And the wife was watching the like first person shooter parts, and she's going, but where's everybody else? when we're looking through his eyes. And he's like, wow, I'm making notes, and he brought it in, and then it was like we had almost more third person. I know a lot of observers that worked on CGS.
Honestly,
they were all told,
very believable for that time. Very believable.
Well, no, it's utterly true, and it wasn't just that. It was like I said, it's putting people like Fatality to commentate a CS game. I think he'd commentated exactly one CS match, and I think it might have been an exhibition match at CPL Winter in 2003. Not too sure about that. By the way, me and Jonathan are coup de la now. He was also one of the first esports assholes I ever met. He was another diva. He probably won't remember, but I got introduced to him by Red Eye when we were working on CGS, and it's when it was when everyone was buying his RAM sticks, everyone was buying his shit, Fatality everywhere, and I got introduced to him, and then Red Eye walked off. He went, well, I'll let you two get acquainted then, and he fucking walked off. And as was Paul's way. And I'm just there, and Jonathan and Jonathan's assistant was there, and he just turned to the assistant and said, "Can you tell this guy I'm too busy to talk to him?" And just walked off.
See, that one at least makes a little bit more sense to me because
he didn't scream in my face, which is fine.
It's more like when you're really young and find success really early, you're gonna be a dickhead, right? And he was fucking huge as a teenager, literally selling motherboards, graphic, or whatever the fuck, right? Yep. Everything. That's an insane level of success for that time. And this is unprecedented for esports as well. That's just like the OG, right? In terms of like superstar players. So that one I can at least I can understand to a certain degree.
I mean, I took that one on the chin. I was like, yeah, there's levels to the game. Like, who the fuck am I? Like that's fair enough. But yeah, it was kind of like really, it was kind of like he was being given pretty much whatever he wanted because they didn't understand who was good. They understood who was big, and they just thought if we had all the big names attached to it, then CGS would succeed. It was why they, like little decisions. They had guys like Heaton, who was a GM, and OD from Dignitas. They were all telling the executives, you have to use 1.6. It's the bigger game. It's the better game. And executives took one look and they went, yeah, but it's stupid. Look, his legs are backwards. Everything's so brown. That was another comment I remember from that time. Everything's so brown. This one looks better for television. Counter-Strike Source back then in 2006.
That's true.
Yeah. And they were like, it was funny as well. There were maps that they didn't like Train. They were like, we don't want to use Train. It's too dark for TV. You can't see under the trains. And they were making all of these like decisions based around that. Not what was good for the esport, but what was good for television or whatever they thought they were creating. And so it goes with the commentators that worked on that. I mean, when I think it was $250,000 Fatality was being paid to commentate back then.
Good Lord.
I think that was the number that got kicked out into public. But again, could be wrong on that one. I didn't have access to the finances. But certainly the people that they saw as being able to proselytize about how great CGS was, the people that had esports credibility, they made a lot of money from what was a project that was doomed to failure.
I think there is another side to the Counter-Strike discussion, though, in terms of 1.6 being quote-unquote better than Source. Initially, obviously, very true. I feel like, and this is just a personal opinion, after a couple of years of being ironed out, Source was just eventually got better. It's just most people just didn't want to make the switch because they're being stubborn. That was my take on it. I think
there's also a barrier to entry with a lot of PC games, which again I'm sure you both
that's
au fait with. Like every time there's a big update, it means you with your shitty rig, maybe you don't get to play the new version, or maybe you do, but it plays like shit. You go from 140 FPS to 60, whatever it might be, and people pretend that's not a factor as to why they prefer this game, but it is a lot of the time, I mean, I remember when I got to talk to Valve at, I think it was the Esports World Cup in France. It was when CSGO kind of first started, and they came out and they told us, like, don't believe what anyone says because we've seen the numbers. Like, Counter-Strike Source was way more popular than 1.6 in terms of how many players were playing it. So that's what they always maintained. And I always thought, put it this way, I'm on record as having said, at the end of Source, with the Z-Block plugin and everything, and file integrity and all of that, it was better than CSGO was for the first like 18 months, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, well, okay, let's get into this then, because CS, we'll get into your Dota stuff at some point as well, just for people that are
maybe
interested in the Dota stuff, obviously.
But we can serialize this.
Yes, of course. So CSGO comes out, and it kind of tries to, and it successfully bridges the gap between 1.6 and Source, effectively kills both communities, and in large part because there's an actual matchmaking in the game. And then in large part, from the monetary standpoint, the children's casino comes out very successful. Yes. But you were right, the game itself was fucking garbage for like 2 years. And we'll get into CS2 in a bit because it feels like it's a similar trajectory. But yeah, take us through your career around this stage.
This was kind of weird because I was an event journalist. I would go and interview players and write match reports and do that kind of thing. I'd started streaming, had like a call-in show called Trash Talk, I want to say at this time. I was just, existing. I was still publishing stuff over at Cadred and, had a weekly column called Gonzaria. Which is true. Genius, branding genius. And, we everything was going pretty cool. And then it was like, I'd been involved in the beta of CSGO. I distributed beta keys for Hidden Path, and that was the external company that initially developed the game. I was active on the forums. I used to give a lot of feedback. Obviously reviewed the game. Did everything I could to help steer them in the right direction. But it wasn't going in the right direction. And then a lot of the pros that have been given feedback, they got super jaded. I think I've got a tweet from 2012 saying, I think we just all have to accept CSGO isn't going to be the game we want it to be. And because, it was really bad. People forget how bad it was. It was unbelievably bad. Hit reg was bad. Crosshair was bad. All the menus were bad. Designed for console, because if you remember, crossplay was what they wanted to do. So everything was circular, so you could quickly move around with your thumbs. Some of their ideas, the movement was diabolical. And so it took a long time to even get it beat into a shape where it felt vaguely like a Counter-Strike game. Not to mention, they rebooted all the maps we'd kicked out of the pool initially. So suddenly we're playing Dust 1 and fucking Aztec again. Which is great. Yeah,
Aztec,
I know, right?
Classic.
Yeah. And not like a remake of Aztec where it's cool. No. All the same mechanical flaws. One
huge choke point, double doors. That's just miserable to go through. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can go on the bridge. You can go on the bridge if you want. Get upped one by one.
Yeah.
So, not a great map. And they brought those back. Again, they didn't understand why we'd cycled those out of competition. And anyway, 2013 comes along. And that's, of course, when they released the Arms Deal update. All the stuff that had been successful in TF2 for skins, and I guess by this point you had Dota items too. All of that stuff was essentially just repackaged, dropped into CS, and they announced a major. They announced $1 million or whatever it was. Might have been $500,000 back then. Let's go. We're gonna take it super serious. Everyone thought it was going to be a good idea, good direction to head into. And suddenly Valve had wrestled back control of their IP from Hidden Path, which was probably still a good thing overall for the game. But certainly it came with a number of downsides. And so I got to see the first major play out from the vantage point of a journalist. I'd been told I wasn't hireable to do on-camera work. So I didn't get to work that. And so I was just on the ground kind of watching it all unfold. But it went pretty well. DreamHack did a good job. It's not the most memorable of storylines because Fnatic won it when, of course, it was meant to be NIP. They were the Titans. It didn't go that way. They were even making a documentary at the time, which helped them lose the major because the documentary crew was keeping them up to do reshoots.
Oh my god!
They were and like they were doing these spontaneous scenes, but then doing reshoots of those spontaneous scenes to make them slightly better for the narrative they wanted to craft. And everyone was just so self-assured that NIP were going to win, and then they didn't. But anyway, so I was watching all of that, and I thought, okay, we're in a good place. Game's heading in the right direction. Valve know what they're doing. Look at all these great IPs they have. They've got TF2. They've got Dota 2. They've got CSGO. Like, this is Valve. They don't fuck anything up. So everything's going to be fine. And that's kind of where I was at. I had to do a mea culpa, walk back my earlier position of saying the game was never going to be good. And got rid of that more fatalist outlook. And then over time, by 2014, I was kind of a regular on the tournament circuit. I was getting hired to be an analyst of all things. And just talking about the game on official broadcast to kind of try and steady the ship until better people came along and take that job away from me.
What year was the TNT stuff? Because I definitely want to talk about that.
2016.
Okay. So
AKA the peak of Counter-Strike.
So, I mean, I wasn't really following Counter-Strike as much during this stage because I was just hardcore into Dota. So I'd been taking a break, I guess. Mostly CSGO as a whole I've taken off. And started up with CS2 again. But talk to us about how you get hired. So for people that maybe don't understand the context, the show that I always mention to you, Cinderin, is Inside the NBA. That's like the show that I base a lot of my career choices off of because of like the vibe that they have. Even though they wear suits, which I still think is stupid, like the vibe is exactly what I try to go for in everything that I do. It's the show with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley is the big one, and then now Shaq. And you got to work with them, which is fucking really cool. So take us through how that came about. Yeah,
right. So I had an agent by 26. Do you guys have agents?
In Dota, we don't, believe it or well, one person does, which I won't name, but nobody else.
Some people do, I think, but it's not a common thing, I think.
Right. So it's a funny story. And it involves tasteosis. So do you remember there was the Sons of StarCraft documentary? And it was being made by they had a friend who was a bit of a rummy and he didn't finish it. And it was all like publicly funded. It was like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter or whatever the fuck was the popular platform back then. This is not familiar to me, I think. Right, okay, well anyway. And they'd promoted it, right? Like Tasteless, Artosis. They were like, look, it's a documentary about us. Please, our fans, go and give money to this guy. We know him. We vouch for him. He's a personal friend and he's going to make this documentary and you're going to get to know more about us and what have you. Remember, I'm a journalist. And by this point, this would have been, I don't know, like 2014, 2015. By this point, I'm known as the guy that calls out bullshit in esports. Mm-hmm. Like, this guy tells the truth. People might not like it, but that's what he does. And so I was watching all of these organizations in StarCraft essentially do Kickstarters, GoFundMes for everything. Need a new team house? We'll just we'll kickstart it. Not a problem. Pizza.gg. We'll do a GoFundMe. All of these like Kickstarter and stretch goals to make money. And then these motherfuckers wouldn't meet their obligations. They just weren't doing it. These documentaries were not coming out. These content pieces weren't getting made. And the fans were like, well, I mean, but they're our favorite casters. They never do anything bad to us. And I was going, no, you're wrong. Like, this is esports. Like, of course they're going to rip you off and if they can get away with it, and you have to hold them accountable. So I wrote an article about it, and it was a series of articles. It was called The Land of Broken Promises. It was like talking about how StarCraft had essentially just become this like fucking embarrassment of like people just taking fans' money and then just holding onto it and not meeting any of their obligations. And one of the chapters was about the Sons of StarCraft documentary. Now, Tasteosis, they were both furious. Obviously, I had previous with Day 9 as well, because I called Day 9 a diva. And so his brother already didn't like me. And then Artosis didn't like me, and in fact, came up and squared up to me incredibly. Still one of the most surreal things that ever happened to me. I had a dream hack, and he'd had a few drinks.
You've had a lot of interactions like that at DreamHack.
It used to happen every drink.
We'll get to that.
People used to just come up and think, well, I can have a pop at Richard Lewis now, at the after party or whatever it would be. And Artosis was one. He was like poking me in the chest and going, I don't like how you make your living. I'm going, well, I don't like how you make yours. You're essentially promoting scams, like at this point. Like, just finished the documentary. So anyway, their agent called me up and was threatening me and saying all this crazy shit. And I was like, listen, if you think I published anything untrue, then you should totally sue me. But if not, then I guess we can just leave this call here. And then he was like getting personal. I was just kind of like laughing in his face. And then he calmed down and he was like going, all right, yeah, they said you were a tough nut to crack. I guess I'm not going to be able to like intimidate you in that. I went, no, definitely not, mate. And he said, okay, fine. Well, just forget about it. I had to try. They're my clients. I love them, And I went, okay, no problem. Put the phone down. A week later, I get a call. Have you got any representation? No, I don't. And he went, would you like me to represent you? And I went, is this like a bribe? And what happens is you represent me and get me a super cool sponsor, but then I have to take down the article I wrote about your clients. And he's going, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that at all. I think you just stood out to me. I think you've got good energy. And I went, all right, yeah, fine. And that agent was part of a thing called Global Esports Management. And then that got bought by William Morris Endeavor, the big talent agency. And it was all of a sudden, everyone that was in the talent agency got grandfathered into William Morris Endeavor. Now, why does that matter to ELeague and working for Turner Sports? William Morris Endeavor was the 50% partner of ELeague with Turner Sports.
I see.
And so when it came to hiring, 2015 was a train wreck for me, right? There was no way I would have been first choice. But this guy actually fought for me to get hired. This agent that had started with this fractious relationship. And basically, that was that. He said, you've got to have Richard Lewis. He's your guy. Had I hosted anything by that point? Yeah, I'd done some majors. Sure. I'd worked as an analyst. I'd worked as a host. American live TV? You fucking crazy? Like, I'm suitable for that, am I? Definitely not. But he fought for me and made a compelling case to Turner. And so, yeah, they did. They held the line. And they held the line even after the Loda thing, which happened before I got hired.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, they'd agreed in principle to hire me. But after the Loda thing, they could have just cut me the fuck out. You have to understand, by that point, it was already like, didn't he spend 6 months writing for a right-wing publication? And now he's fighting people? So it was already like a clusterfuck. And so, nope. My guy held the line for me, and they bit the bullet, and they hired me. And I was a full-time employee of Turner Sports. I wasn't freelance.
So you lived in Atlanta then, I take it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I lived in Atlanta, used to go to the studio every day. Our studio was opposite where they shoot inside the NBA. I used to see Ernie, used to see Shaq. I got to be real friendly with, I don't think Chuck particularly liked me. We did a CES together one time, which is the consumer electronic thing that they do in Vegas. And that was where we did our ELeague debut show. And we had that famous back and forth where Thorin challenged Shaq to a weight loss competition. And anyway, after that, they hit the tables, and Chuck was getting beat up. Like he was losing so much money, and he like said, "Give me a drink, limey or something," like called me like an insult. And then I didn't really talk to Chuck all that much, but I used to see Shaq. Ernie was great. I remember Ernie came in very early at the start of ELeague, and he gave me a pep talk. He came in, I had like a little office, and he came in and he said, look, like I remember when I started doing this stuff and started talking about his family and how he got into it and how, he was very green at the start, but like just saying like, oh, like stay upbeat, keep working hard. You definitely belong here. No one gets to work for Turner unless you deserve it. Put any doubts out your mind. I've seen your work. I think you're really good. It was like, this is fucking Ernie Johnson saying this, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like fucking blew me away. when I had my contract negotiations, fucking Shaq came in and he like sat down and said, "Make sure you get that paper." Like gave me a fucking said, "Don't." He said, like, "Your key to the show. Hold the line. Make sure you get paid. Don't let them run over you." So it was like it was like a really surreal time in my life. Every day it felt like I'd get introduced to like a big sports star, and they would want to know about esports, and I was like the esports whisperer. So they would bring me in, and Rick Fox with Echo Fox's organization, or I met like A-Rod, and he's like, I think he had a partial investment in NRG, and he was going, "You think putting some money in NRG is a good idea?" And I'm going, "I don't know. How much are we talking?" And yeah, it was just surreal, bro. It was like the only time I got close to like believing my own bullshit, because it really did feel for like 2 years like being a celebrity. Like it did, a Z-list celebrity, but I was on the ladder, and yeah, that was crazy. And the Counter-Strike was pretty good too. The production was unparalleled.
How did
the product put out was really good.
I'm sure I watched some, I just don't remember now, but how did it come up, like from a TNT perspective? Obviously they didn't renew after a certain point, but like, was it
the viewership
successful?
just wasn't there. I mean, no, not at all. I remember because we were in what they call the Friday night death slot. Have you ever heard of this term? I guess Sons might have, Cinder and probably not so much. But a Friday night death slot is literally where you just put a TV show to fill the time. It will never do well because the key demographic you want, they're all out partying. They're out drinking, having dinner, going to nightclubs. So you're just in that slot. And you're already hampered at getting viewership when you're in that slot. I remember the first show we did, and I remember the vice president of Turner Sports came into us and he said, "Right, we're going to stay up all night to get the rushes on, not the rushes, they have a term for it where you get the ratings super quick." I can't remember what he said, what he called it. But anyway, they get a special early edition of the ratings. And I remember him saying, if we start with like a 0.3, a 0.4, I know we've got something. And a 0.3 is like 300,000, watching in that slot live, right? And we didn't hit that.
No.
We hit it. I think we hit 0.2 on our debut.
Oh, that's still more than I would expect, honestly.
Yeah, but then, okay, so this is the heartbreak. Like, I remember, like, because, I took on a bit more of a leadership role. You've seen how I do my hosting. I'm always like looking out for people and making sure everyone's got what they need to do a good job. I try and like be I try and be like a point of contact. Like if you don't think the show is right, don't go to production yourself, or don't have an awkward conversation with someone. Tell me and I'll do it. And then, I try and do that. And I was doing that, and I remember like rallying the troops and going, "Guys, this is great. He said 0.3, 0.4, we hit 0.2. We're a new show. They're going to get to know us. They're going to get to like us. Don't you fucking worry. We're going to be nailing that viewership." And I was like, look at what we're up against, guys. We're up against Big Bang Theory reruns and stuff. We're going to fucking crush it. Don't worry about it. Then I looked at the rating sheet for a 1 a.m. Big Bang Theory rerun, and they were on 1.2 million. And it makes the pep talk a little bit fucking hollow at that point. Because I think like the best shows we did for like ELeague, I don't even think we got close to that. Like the most popular stuff we did. And unfortunately, it just wasn't tenable because no matter what they said this was about building a digital brand to go to the future, a world where people don't have cable, a world where there's more online broadcasting. But in reality, they were kind of hoping to slow the tide of cable cutting, and they were very ratings beholden, which they said they wouldn't be. But then like a year into the project, it became very apparent.
Yeah, at a certain point, they have to be, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
But that's still really fun. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. For me, that would be the highlight of my entire life, career, whatever.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's not lost to me. I got to wake up at a nice apartment in Atlanta in a really like crazy area. There was like a big park where there was concerts all the time. It was right next to like this little hipster, there's a Whole Foods and a craft ale. You can buy bottles of craft ale and just take them out and drink on the grass while you're listening to some music. And I'm going in every day, to like record voiceover work or record the highlights package that has to go out to a different audience, and looking at the upcoming script and ideas and content ideas, meeting sponsors. That's another thing I had to do. Like the guy from Arby's. I met like the executive from Arby's really wanted to get to know me for some reason.
I think roast beef.
No, I think it's because he thought I was a conservative, if I'm being honest. and he was kind of fascinated at this very like liberal space. Like, wow, conservative, but obviously I'm not, right? But I think he thought I was because the Breitbart stuff. And so anyway, he like came in and sat down, and it was like, I had to have like a super long, like very important conversation with him. Arby's one of the best sponsors esports ever had. He was great, and Arby's were great. And I remember when we showed him a clip of ELeague where they were like, I can say this now, Arby's probably, in a list of places I would go to eat. It's very low for me personally.
I love Arby's. How dare you?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Excellent. I'm glad you do. But as an esports sponsor, they were fucking rad. And I remember we had like an audience one day, and they were like chanting "Arby's, Arby's,"
Really?
like during a game of Counter-Strike. We showed him the footage, and he was like, "Right, let's fucking double down on this." I was
awesome.
like saying to him, like, how often does the sponsor's name get chanted at an esports event, right?
That's true.
And then just as another little funny anecdote, because this is kind of just to make people understand how crazy my life was for 2 years. Every day was an insane adventure. We had this thing where Arby's sponsored a segment, again, because I think he was, pro Second Amendment, so he didn't mind. We went down to a local gun range in Atlanta. And by the way, I like to shoot. So I used to go down the gun ranges as well. And we had the Counter-Strike teams come and fire Counter-Strike weapons into Arby's sandwiches on the range, making them explode in slow-mo.
That's
and
cool.
Whoever hit the fucking most sandwiches won the points. And it was like, who's good on the server, but who's really good with a real firearm, right? Now, here's the problem with America. There's like a fucking mass shooting like every other week. So there was one week we just come into the production meeting, and it was like, yeah, we can't show the Arby's segment today. And I'm like, why? What's up? And he said, well, didn't you hear about this? And I'm like, yeah, but like we're going to broadcast Counter-Strike. That's got guns in it. And they were like, standards and practices just feel we shouldn't show anything that could be perceived to be glorifying guns at this moment in time. So we had to pull this fucking sick segment that we, promised the sponsor. We'll show it at a later date, but we've only got a limited amount of weeks. So it's going to have to double up or overlap or something this week. Just went without the RB segment. And then it was like the next week, we were like, can we do it again? And everyone's like, ooh, I don't know. And then the week after that, I think a kid got eaten by a crocodile in Disneyland. And this is, people can look this up. And I remember this is how crazy TV is. I remember being in that meeting and going, right, it's a go for the Arby's thing now because this kid got...
That is so fucking good.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So...
Thank God he got killed by a fucking crocodile and not a gun.
Yeah.
Oh
it was the TV is just insane. Like it's just an insane world to operate in. So for like 2 years, my life was very fucking surreal.
Oh my God, that is so hilarious.
But very cool. Very cool. And I agree with you. Like, unironically, I like people say, oh, you're washed or whatever. I do look at that as the peak of like the content I produced, the broadcast that we did, general standard of living, feeling good and positive within myself. That was it. That was the moment. That was the top of the roller coaster, no doubt about it. But yeah, like loads of crazy stories from that time period. Like just very weird.
Very cool.
So now you've referenced twice, I think you've referenced Breitbart and that being what was the deal with that? Like, why did you start writing there if you don't align at all? Did you not know what you were getting yourself into, or people like misconstruing what actually happened?
I don't know if you know this about American Cinderin, but they think their fucking world is the center of the universe, don't they? So first of all,
right, Shannon?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, can confirm. Yeah. Now, listen, having lived in America for close to 6 years, they've got a point. It's great out there. I miss it every day. But I will say this, Breitbart to the average Brit, like most people didn't really know who Andrew Breitbart was. I did because I was a bit more media savvy. I only knew of Breitbart from the Acorn scandal that they did, where they published a deceptively edited video. And I remember when I had the interview to go there, I was like, I don't know if I can be associated with that. But it wasn't Steve Bannon's Breitbart in 2015 or whenever I went. I think it was early 2015. It hadn't become this like Trump machine. It wasn't necessarily as extreme. It was still right wing. What you have to understand is, like, for me, I was at a super left leaning publication before that called the Daily Dot. And they kept editing my fucking copy, and it's CGS all over again. And it was driving me fucking insane because every time I said something, it would be right. So, for instance, I hate to use the G word, right? Because it's so blasé now, and I couldn't give less of a fuck, and no one should care about it in 2025. But you know, Gamergate had sort of happened, and that was the hashtag everyone was talking about, and I just was like, yeah, I think it's a lot of journalists making a big song and dance over nothing, and a lot of people opportunistically trying to position themselves as victims for cultural cachet. I don't really see it. There's no evidence that I've been presented to that makes me think it's anything more than that, right? It's just a hashtag. Anyone can use it. Some of the people using the hashtag will be bad people. No dramas. That should be a valid opinion I should be allowed to hold. Evidently not, because every time I had to mention it, in my copy, it would be Gamergate, comma, I didn't write this, my editor wrote this, a harassment movement towards women and black people in video game spaces, end comma. And I'm going, yeah, but I don't think that. I don't think it is that. And I don't think it's right that you ascribe viewpoints to me in writing with my name on it that I don't hold. And they did this repeatedly, and they did it over everything. And then we also, when I really got jaded, there was some like story, culture war slop. I can't even remember the specifics, but basically they had written a story saying this guy was bad. And then it turned out, oh no, this guy wasn't bad. He was actually good. And people had lied about the guy being bad. And I said to the Daily Dot editor, well, we should write a correction about that, shouldn't we? I'll write it up. I'll write up the article explaining the truth. And they went, nah, don't think we need to do that. I'm pretty sure we do, because like we wrote the first part of the story, and now we're not writing up the second part where he's been exonerated. Yeah, I just don't think people really want to read that. What? So I ended up, and this is where it gets bad. This is where everyone hates me again in Dota. But I ended up being like, I've got to leave the Daily Dot, man. This sucks. They're like they're like changing my copy and censoring what stories you write, and they're violating these journalistic ethics. And it doesn't sit right with me. And then out of nowhere, I got hit up by a guy called Milo Yiannopoulos that some people might be familiar with. And Milo Yiannopoulos was very much on the kind of right-wing grifter teat. But I just knew him as like some sort of flamboyant media homosexual who was like just kind of funny. I never thought he was bad or racist or Islamophobic or anything like that. I just saw a guy that just said outrageous things publicly for attention, and he had been given money to create a tech section which would have fallen under the Breitbart portfolio but was run separately essentially by him. And I looked at the people they already had working there. It was like a woman, dual heritage British Pakistani guy called Alan Bakari, who does great work. You know, and I was like looking at this going, well, this doesn't feel very right-wing or racist or weird. And he said, come and write about video games. You know, conservatives play video games too, Richard. Right? Oh, okay, fine, fuck it. I need a job. The Turner gig's a long way away. I need to, you know, pay the bills. So why not? So I jumped into it with both feet, and it was fine. There was nothing crazy. I didn't notice anything untoward. No one was saying anything bad in the meetings. It's not like we were all going, right, okay, now we can do it, guys. Come on. Yeah, it wasn't like that, right? It was just normal people pitching normal stories. And yeah, I wrote some stuff where I was like, don't really think this social justice movement's heading in the right direction. Seem to be a lot of maniacs steering that particular ship right now. But as a social justice guy, I just think like, I don't want crazy people driving people away from good causes. That's always been like my take on it. That when you have the levers of cultural power, you have to win hearts and minds, and you don't do that by putting out the screeching hysterical people on either side. You know, what you have to do is you have to get the people that can make compelling arguments for why their ideas are good in a very calm manner. They're the type of people I want to hear from. And so, you know, I went, did it I was there for 7 months. You'd think I was there for years. And it went the same way everything else has gone in my career, which is it starts pure and everyone's telling the truth and it's well-intentioned, but then the veneer crumbles and you start to see things. Like I got CC'd in an email where it was like, oh, they didn't want me because they think I'm a good writer. They just want to capture my audience. Well, that sounds a bit sinister. Okay, well, try not to think too much about that one. Oh, look, there's an article that I didn't write again with my name on it. Okay.
Right.
It does, you know, and so it kind of showed me that basically in the great culture war nonsense that's been raging on the internet for all this time, like there really isn't a side you can occupy and it be good and positive and honest. Everyone's willing to bend any rules or values or morals that they, you know, ostensibly have in order to win. Winning is what's important. You know, getting the W, owning the libs, whatever it might be. That's what's important. Not truth, not doing it the right way, not holding yourself to a higher standard than your political opponents. And so I was like, you know what? Yeah, fuck this, actually. And so by this point, Turner had come up. Breitbart was only going one way. A lot of the people that worked at Breitbart or associated and affiliated with Breitbart were getting out. Ben Shapiro, quite famously, he was there when I was working there. I remember the day he left. You know, he was an editor at large at Breitbart, and he left because of a story where a journalist had said one of Trump's press goons had like grabbed her. And Ben was like, we've got to stand up for our journalists. And obviously, Breitbart being very much pro-Trump by this point, it was like, no, we're not going to write about this. It did turn out she was lying anyway, but, you know, the principle was right, I guess. And so, yeah, it was like everybody was getting out because you knew the longer you stayed there in this, like, malignant version of the publication, the worse it was going to be for you long-term if you wanted to have any kind of credible media career. And so everyone was bailing out. And then, of course, Milo... He got cancelled over, first of all, talking about how grooming was okay. That was the first thing he did. He said something like along the lines of grooming is an essential part of the gay experience, is what he said. And I was like, yikes. And then BuzzFeed did a special expose where I think they'd got some leaked Slack communications and a video of him singing America the Beautiful in front of neo-Nazi Richard Spencer. And at that point, that was when I was like, okay, well, guess I'm not the judge of character I thought I was. And obviously got fucking bombarded with just, you know, here we are 10 years later. I spent 7 months at this publication. You should have known what they were up to. You're a Nazi. You're obviously right wing. Yeah, man. It's like, no, man. I'm just like, I was trying to find a space in the culture war where I wanted to address ideas that were important to me and things that I thought were going wrong with the leftist movement. But there really wasn't a place to stand because if you stood with them, you were next to someone very unpleasant to be around. And if you were on this side, you with Steve Bannon and the whole pro-Trump machine. And so, yeah, that was like really shitty. But people have beaten me over the head with it. Like, I'd like to think, is 10 years of atonement enough, guys? Like, is that enough? Is 10 years of atonement? Is coming out and making a video disavowing, was that enough? Was that enough? Is that going to be enough? But it probably will never be enough and it'll still get brought up. I see it every time. Every time I get hired or work an event to this day. I don't want somebody that worked at Breitbart recruiting children into the alt-right pipeline working at my esports. Yeah, well, definitely was doing that, of course. That was like specifically my job. Like I was the alt-right pipeliner. That's what it said on my office, you know. Just
the
so
nameplate,
yeah. So yeah, it was, like, again, one of the things I've come to make peace with is you should be held accountable for bad decisions and bad choices, but I don't need angry community of children to do that for me. I kind of feel like the cosmos is going to do that for me, and has. And, certainly it's cost me a disproportionate amount, in my opinion. And also, think about the environment it creates when, you guys, I come and work an event, and it's probably like, who is he? Oh, shit, man, did you see how he was? But what if he's done it? What if he holds this opinion? Oh, God, I bet he's going to be a pro-Trump guy. Oh, no. And it's like, everyone, when I came into the Dota space again for PGL, I could tell everyone was super fucking apprehensive because they just didn't know what they were going to get. They didn't know what kind of maniac was going to turn up.
You and I had never met. I just assumed you were somewhere on the right side, and I was completely wrong.
Yeah, that's just, like, let's be real. Like, it's not that I want to demonize any side of the political aisle. I just find, first of all, a lot of right-wing people, a lot of conservatives, they're just fucking cringe. Like, I can't be associated with cringe. Like, that's, then again, I've worked in esports for 20 years. I'm pretty sure I have.
That's as cringe as it gets, honestly.
But you know what I mean?
You don't need to associate with it if you are cringe yourself.
That's good.
The pure form is what we should all strive for.
But yeah, so like, I nearly off-ramped into politics. We were in talks with Sirius FM to do an online radio show. It was going to be me and Milo Yiannopoulos, working title Milo and Dick, and we scripted it out. we were getting like really close to doing it, and I just think my life would have been over if I'd said yes to that now. So that could have been a lot worse, but yeah, I get beat over the head quite a bit for that. I don't know if it's fair, but people can say what people are going to say.
Let's sidestep into Dota. So Dota, I was surprised to hear you say when we were at the Wallaki event together that you actually play more Dota than CS these days. So talk to me how you started with Dota and kind of that transition into being the host.
I played Hon.
Boy, hell yeah.
Yeah, and basically, obviously everyone knows that was kind of the Dota 2 waiting room. But then I ended up playing League, which, and you had to kind of write about League of Legends if you wanted traffic, or if you were working at an esports website at the time. So, like, this is the thing, even prior to the Loda stuff, the Dota community fucking hated me. Because I went on an episode of Live on 3, and it was like Slasher and Sir Scoots and DJ Wheat, and I think I just went on like some insane tirade because I sort of did like being a contrarian, and I went on some insane tirade about how like we get all the heroes for free, and like it's just like all the Dota circle jerk was just like kind of pissing me off back then, and people were so reticent to say anything positive about League. So I just kind of went on and was like, yeah, this League does this better, League does this better, League does this better. And then all the Dota fans hated me for that. But I played a lot of League, and then I would dip in and out of Dota because a lot of CS players play that. It's pretty much their second game. And we would just fire it up and we would just play. And I wasn't very good. And there would be some patches where I would just be like, I'm not doing this. This is bad. This is not Dota. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And I did play Dota 1, obviously, as well, back like when it was Dota All-Stars. I did used to play that. I worked in a LAN cafe, which is where we had the CGS Combine. I got a job in that LAN cafe. And I had a Malaysian friend called C, and he would basically just be like, listen, every lunch break, we'll get some boys, we'll fire up some Dota and just sit in my office and play a game. But I wasn't like actively participating. I wasn't like learning anything about the game. It was just something to do to kill a lunch break or what have you. But I really started getting into it the last like 5, 6, it might be more, I guess 7 years. I ended up making some good friends. A guy I was laning with had like a fucking total meltdown, and so I had a counter meltdown. We were screaming at each other, and then the guy he was queued with went, "Is that Richard Lewis?" And I went, "Yeah." And like, keep in mind, I've been telling this guy to fuck, it's pretty spicy. It is the thing that you can't say anymore, the unalive thing. You know, that's reflexively for a millennial. That's a go-to. We used to say that in jest. You're not supposed to say it now. It slipped out. So I've said that to him. This guy's recognized me. All I'm thinking about is I'm going to get recorded and it's going to go on Dota and everyone's going to say, see, we were right about him the whole time. So I'm trying to placate his friend and he's asking me questions in the middle of this game. You know, oh yeah, what was it like working MLG Columbus? That was oh yeah, have you ever met Guardian? He's like my favorite player, you know. And I'm just like, fucking hell. I'm like, yeah, that Guardian's a cool cat. Sorry about not pulling that wave there, mate. Yeah, and I'm trying to like win him over and like make friends with him, you know. So anyway, the guy that recognized me, I ended up buying him a skin, an expensive CS skin. He will not betray me now. But then the other guy, I said to him like, oh yeah, sorry about that, mate. Kind of lost my temper. And he went, oh yeah, sorry, lost my temper too. And we ended up like queuing together a few times. You fast forward like however many years later it is, you know, we're very good friends. Been to his brother's wedding. You know, and this is what I mean. Like people say like, oh, you should never flame people in a video. That's bullshit. You know, some people realize they're being stupid. Some people use video games for catharsis. Everyone's coming in with a different headspace and a different idea. And if I hadn't had a meltdown in that game to the guy having the meltdown, if I took the moral high road, I wouldn't have some incredible friends right now. So, but yeah,
There's a great moral of this story.
Yes, exactly.
This is a good message.
If you take away
Richard.
nothing else
that's
from this
great.
episode, sometimes it's okay to pop off and flame someone. You might make a friend.
I think statistically speaking, this is not a very sound advice for anyone.
I might be an outlier. I'm willing to acknowledge that. But anyway, yeah, but it works for me. And if it worked for me, it can work for you. But yeah, so I played with those guys all the time, and they were all really high-level players compared to where I was at. You know, I was coming in, I was like Crusader level or something. Not Crusader. What was it? Herald Crusader. What's that one? Is it Guardian Crusader?
Oh, Guardian, Archon.
I don't know. Anyway, the green one with the circles. And anyway, like they were all like fucking, you know, we had a couple of immortals, we had some divine guys. Generally, the baseline was about ancient, which I know obviously isn't deemed to be very good now. But anyway, they actively like taught me the game, what I needed to be doing, and you know, I got my badge up to the point where it wasn't a disgrace. And I felt like comfortable talking about the game and in you know, interacting with people with ideas during the game. And I thought I had a pretty good handle on it. And just because I wanted to get better, I was like consuming lots of content. You know, I would listen to you guys. I would listen to every episode of your podcast. You know, listen to a lot of the more informative streams. I used to listen to Purge's stuff all the time. He can't stand me, but you know, whatever. That's fine. I'll still listen to his patch notes.
Have you met him?
You know, no, we never met, but it's pretty. To be fair as well, I've got a big mouth, and I've called him out on a few things, so whatever.
You called Purge out, huh?
Yeah, just on some hypocrisy stuff that we don't necessarily need to get into. The big esports hypocrisy that everyone participates in. So okay.
Oh, I see now. Okay.
Yeah. You know, all roads leading to Riyadh and that. Yeah. But you know, like that's fine. Not everyone has to like everyone. If we ever did work an event together, I'd be professional and courteous, because of course I would. But he was really helpful as well. I think a lot of people owe Purge a lot. In terms of like leveling up your game and learning about it. And then through that, you know, you start discovering some of the new wave stuff like T-Gov and who I've had the pleasure to work with now, and Jenkins, of course, who probably actually dismantles your knowledge in some way, but in a good way, like makes you think about the game in an interesting way, which I always liked. And so it was like super surreal when I got to work with everybody, because I'm a fan, right? You know, I'm a fan. I'm not coming in with any big, you know, kind of.
But you were on TNT, Richard.
I know. But you are the host of We Say Things.
Yeah, that's big time right there.
That's right. Can you let your friends at TNT know about this? Chance? We could.
Yeah, I don't think they're in the market. I don't think they're in the market for a Dota podcast. I don't think they're about that.
We've got a sponsor slot available right now if they strike fast. This is their chance to get.
Listen, I'll give you the email. You can send it in if you want. I'll let you put the pitch together in your own words.
You thought CS was unwatchable. My goodness, Dota is on another level.
Check this out.
Can I write the text and then just sign it in your name, like the articles?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously you wouldn't be the first. It's tradition at this point. So everyone has to betray me by writing articles and opinions and then ascribing them to me. But yeah, it was so yeah, I mean, like I was stoked because when Silvio, who's the owner of PGL, when he negotiated me he wanted me to do all of the CS tour for 25, like at the end of 24, 25, 26, and right through to 27. And I said, listen, I'll do it, I'll agree, but you've got to give me a chance to be a Dota host for one of your Dota events. And then 100%, I'll do it. And so he said, okay. And I think he thought, like a lot of people, I think didn't realize like how much respect I have for the game and the talent. I think people probably thought I was doing it to be a bit memey, or like I was going to sit there and do like a really self-indulgent segment and be like, "So here's what really happened with the Loda situation, kids." Sorry, T-Gov, no opinions from you right now. You know, but it was never going to be like that for me. It was like it was an opportunity to work in the game that I play the most, enjoy the most, with talent that I think are right up there with some of the best esports has ever produced, which, you know, obviously StarCraft was blessed. I worked a lot in StarCraft. CS, without a shadow of a doubt, has just been blessed with generational talent time and time again that can do anything. But I think Dota is really slept on for the talent it produces, you know, like great hosts, unbelievable commentators that are doing so much. Like, how could you not say like OD Pixel and Fogged aren't one of the greatest of all time, one of the greatest pairings of all time in anything. And then you guys, you know, as I said to you at the event, I think in terms of that like conversational story building style, you're like the closest duo to Tasteoses that I think I've heard. You know,
that's big praise.
So yeah, it really is because
even though Richard hates them, you know, individually.
Yeah. Now that you say that, do you think we could you make a documentary about us and we crowdfund that together?
I mean, listen, I'm certainly probably as drunk as the last guy that tried it. So, but no, I mean, like really, the stylistically, but it is high praise because I think they're fantastic. They're Hall of Famers. Even with our run-ins, like. You can call me an asshole. I'm not like, but if you're good at your job, I'm always going to acknowledge it. There's nothing you could ever say to me that would make me like denigrate your work. Like we don't have to get along, but if you do good work, I fuck with it because I know what it's like to really hold yourself to a standard, and you want to work hard and you want to do your best work. And sometimes you define yourself by your work. Like you might not have a lot going on. You know, this was a trap I fell into like a lot in my career. One of the reasons I'd be so sensitive on social media is if people said you're lying, it's like I'm a fucking journalist who's like I'm pledged to I've sworn a sacred oath to tell the truth, you know, like how can you say this about me? And it would like really wind me up because I didn't have anything else in my life except that definition of myself. So it was punching me right in the soft spot. And so it's the same for a lot of commentators. Like I would never do that to them, even if I didn't like them. You know, as people, I would never denigrate their work if I thought they were good. I would never tell that lie. And so I think that's important to like, you know, set the separation of art and artiste. But to the point, yeah, Dota's fantastic. And I've been very pleasantly surprised with how much fun the broadcasts have been because it's a very different vibe. And personally, we've got there eventually, but for many years, the Counter-Strike green room was a fucking nightmare. It was a nightmare. It was hard sometimes to be on the road doing those shows, a lot of egos, a lot of partying, a lot of expectations. I was probably part of that too. I'm not going to give myself a pass. I definitely have made, you know, I've definitely been, let's say, over exuberant in some of those shows, but the Dota talent is just a fucking vibe. Everyone
because we're all fucking nerds.
Yeah,
we're all introverted for the most part.
Yeah, it's really cool. I used to laugh at you guys because it would be like you'd be taking photos of you from an event, and it would be like, you know, picture of a table like just playing a game of Risk, after a hard day's broadcast. And I'm like, look at those fucking pussies. Like, oh, look at those pussies. You take a picture of a CS event, we're all like chopping up lines. There's like strippers everywhere or whatever. And like, look, and you guys are busting out Risk. Actually, Richard, it's Risk Legacy. You know, so I used to laugh at you guys, but as I've got older, you know, like I fucking appreciate that, man, because like the wear and tear when you're away for 12 days at a time living in a hotel, it's like really takes its toll more than you would think it would, especially if you're working long days or not sleeping right or whatever it might be. And so, yeah, it's actually been, and also you're all really nice people. I don't think I haven't worked with anyone at Valahia that I don't genuinely enjoy the company of. There's no one, you know, like when you're at an event, sometimes there might be someone you just don't want to talk to, but you kind of have to professionally. Mm-hmm. And it really kind of, it sours the event a little bit. But like there hasn't been any of that at the Valahias. So it's been really good. It's been good. I hope everyone's been enjoying the shows and enjoying the work. I try to give, you know, my hosting approach, I try and make it a little bit unique and a little bit different. Everyone's got their own voice. You know, Shiva's obviously always going to be more authentically authoritative than me because she is dyed-in-the-wool Dota. You know, I'm still probably seen as an outsider, but I can play with that. I can use that to make the show better. I can have a bit of fun with it. So, yeah, it's been really good. Like, definitely no regrets. And hopefully it's been good for all of you guys,
too. Yeah,
too.
Definitely enjoyed working with you. We didn't get to... I don't think we worked a shift together, though. I don't believe, right? I never threw to you or anything like that.
Yeah. One of the things I've definitely started to suspect is I think all the people that are kind of like me and have that kind of like crazy energy, I think they keep us apart from each other.
Jenkins,
and so me and Jenkins didn't do a single segment together last Valahia. No, I know what PGL are going to say. They're going to go, "Oh no, it's just the shift pattern. You know, it's how it works.
Just a coincidence."
Yeah, but I don't believe in esports coincidences. I don't know about you. So yeah, they've definitely kept me and Shannon apart, and they've definitely kept me and Jenkins apart.
Okay, I want to end with. Well, I guess we could do two things. Let's end with the Loda thing, but first, before that,
all right.
Since this was also a huge part of your career, the match fixing scandal in NA, I want you to give your take on how that came to be.
Yeah, this is like
for people that never, because a lot of people listening will not even know what we're talking about, right?
It's like being a cop and you did a big bust, and everyone wants to hear about how it went. Yeah, I mean, look, the match fixing thing in NA, unfortunately, again with time, I've become kind of more jaded. And listen, guys, tier 2 esports full of fixing, Dota full of fixing, CS full of fixing. Everyone's fixing. More fixings than a Christmas table, mate. It's fucking bullshit. And you're not going to get them all. It's super hard to police. The evidentiary standard is ridiculous and ridiculously high. The community want smoking gun video footage, evidence, you know, money changing hands. You know, it's like they want too much to even believe it. And so a lot of people have got away with a lot of bullshit in multiple esports. And there's certain regions as well. I mean, I guess I can say it. I mean, China, you know, there's certain in Russia, there's certain regions that have more of it for socioeconomic factors, but also have a disproportionate amount of influence in terms of just how hard do we want to turn over the stones in that particular region. And certainly when it comes to China, the single biggest market in video games and esports, people don't want to rock the boat and talk about it, and it's sad. And I've got sympathy for some people in these countries because match fixing, even in low-level esports, has ties to organized crime. And I've interviewed people that have told me guys with guns have come to an esports team house and said, "I just want to make sure we all know which games we got to fix, guys." And it's like, imagine being a player and living under that pressure. Like, it's not worth your life, is it? You just fix the game. But that's different to what happened in NA, where it was just kids who thought they were too smart and too cool for school and could beat the system and do it in front of everyone's faces and rub their nose in it and make some money on the side. And so the NA one, I was definitely, back then in 2015, as I said, it was a train wreck year, really. 2015 kicks off, I think, with the iBuyPower scandal coming out. And that was just, it was so obvious that they'd fixed the game. I had people telling me they fixed the game. I had text evidence that they fixed the game. And I came out and said, they probably fixed this game, guys. And everyone was like, nah, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. No one would do it. And like, of course, everyone was doing it. Like, I mean, you know, quite literally. Once skins got put into the market, a lot of players just thought, well, we can just place bets on our games and earn skins. There was quite a famous case where Virtus.pro, a beloved team of Polish players, they played a game that was being broadcast later in the day, but they knew the result because they played in it. And they went on CSGO Lounge and bet skins on their game, knowing the outcome. And everyone just went,
this is so fucking unreal.
Yeah, that's bad. And they went, oh, sorry, we'll give the skins back. Our bad. Whoopsie. It's like, how the fuck could you not know how that was going to be perceived? That was the level of ignorance in the scene at this time. And I saw so much of it that I really just wanted to, like, it was the short, sharp shock, you know? It was like, these guys have done it so brazenly. And so it took 6 months investigating. All the while, these former friends of mine, particularly Steele. Steele had stayed at my house quite famously. Basically, he was in a European organization called MTW. They were a German organization. They went bust. He had nowhere to stay. I said, fly to Birmingham. I'll put you up in my house until you get back on your feet. He was like literally trialing for teams in a rickety ass setup in my living room while he was like living in my house. And I had to say, this guy fixed the game. And it was tough. It wasn't nice to do that. It wasn't nice to, you know, potentially ruin his career when we were very close. And obviously as well, they had to do what they had to do. And what they had to do was say I was a liar. And so they went on like Summit's stream quite famously, because Summit was sponsored by iBuyPower computers as well. And they said on one of the biggest streams at the time, Richard Lewis is a crazy old man, because I was old back then apparently as well. And he's a crazy old man. You can't trust anything he says. He's a lunatic, and he's lying for attention and relevancy. And these were my friends doing this to me, and I knew they'd done it, and they knew they'd done it. And I was getting wrecked. This was like terrible. I was getting fucking DDoSed. I was getting threats. People were trying to hack all my socials, because everybody loved that iBuyPower team.
Because NA, well, anyway, briefly, because a lot of people are not going to understand the context. When it comes to NA teams in Counter-Strike, it feels like the scene has been starving for someone to break apart from the pack, right? Because NA just hasn't really been on that level very often in Counter-Strike history.
Yeah. I mean, back then, right? This team were so unbelievably popular because it was all of the big names. You know, it was Dazed and Steel, and they were kind of seen as gatekeepers of producing talent. But you obviously had Swag. You know, you had it was AZK, who was really good with the team dynamic. They had been the one NA team that came over to Europe quite regularly, and they used to beat. You know, they met in a few finals and played very games. Who were the best team at the time and gave them a really good game. And so. And then obviously Skadoodle, the guy that got away with it. And so obviously this was a beloved team. But despite all of that talent, they were playing for iBuyPower and they were not being paid a salary. They were being told, we will let you keep the sticker money if we qualify for the major. And so that's what they were playing for. So obviously, when you're making no money, and, you know, a lot of people didn't notice at the time, but like Swag was growing up in a very poor environment. He was the younger guy on the team. He was under a unique kind of pressure to get a job, you know, because he was living at home as a younger guy. And he was under a lot of parental pressure, a lot of societal pressure. They didn't have a lot of money to begin with. And, you know, guess what? You can just fix this game. It was a meaningless game in Cal or whatever it was. Was it even Cal? But no, CEVO. Sorry, CEVO. I misspoke. It was a meaningless game in CEVO. Funnily enough, up against a team that Dazed owned. So conflict of interest, esports. great,
Lovely.
right? Yeah, netcode guides. They were allowed to play in a league together, Dazed owning the team. Now, despite that, the players on that team still claim to this day they didn't know, that there was no communication. And obviously, it was just a standard throw. It was the most basic throw you can do in esports. You literally just play bad. You know, they put like steel on the AWP and skadoodle on the rifle. They would deliberately go in for knives. You lose the game. They'd already qualified for the LAN finals. If Netcode Guides won, they would have made it to the LAN finals as well, potentially. So it had that double benefit for Dazed, who was on the team. And it was just so obvious. They were laughing and giggling while they were doing it. Everybody knew it was a fix. But then when it came to actually, if it's a fix, we should hold them accountable. All the NA fans were like, no, how dare you? How dare you? We don't want to do that. And so, like I said, I did 6 months of investigating. One of the guys, one of their friends, who had been betting on the games as well and had hooked them up with this connection in Vietnam, so they could bet in bulk on CSGO Lounge. He'd basically broke up with his girlfriend, and he'd been texting her all of the fixes. And she leaked the texts, and everyone said, "You're lying. She's lying for attention. Can't trust ex-girlfriends. Everybody knows that. We're a very male-oriented community. Back, she-devil." So that's how that one went down. And then I got in touch with her, and I said, "Can I have a look at the phone?" And so I got the evidence and sent it all to Valve. And Valve pontificated, and then one day I woke up and they were banned. I had all these messages on fucking Skype and DMs, and everyone was like, "You just did it, man. It's like the biggest story in esports history." But it wasn't.
It was still big, though. It was still very big.
It's big in terms of impact, in terms of like how fucking... I don't rate it in my top 10. Personally, I think I did much better stories. I interviewed a fucking crazy hacker from Australia that put a backdoor on Riot Games servers after guessing an executive's password, which was something like password 123, and he could shut down any account in League of Legends. And Riot Games executives covered it up. This data breach, they didn't admit it was happening, and then they eventually found the guy and sued him, and it all came out. That was way bigger than this. This was much bigger. No one remembers that story.
So
everyone remembers that by Palace.
Real quickly, just out of curiosity, because I find this interesting. Like, first of all, I respect when you put your principles above everything else like that. Do you have any regrets with any of that stuff? Because you talk about, like, I know it doesn't necessarily cross this threshold.
I go back and forth on it.
Everybody is like, tons of people are match fixing. So at the end of the day, did you ever feel like, obviously you felt bad, but did you said you wavered? Why is that?
Well, because what ended up happening was it was a lifetime ban. Now you have to remember, in Dota, you'd had a match fixing guy to the solo 322 thing, and that was a year, right? And Valve didn't necessarily get involved. If those guys had just admitted what they did, they would have got banned from CEVO. It probably wouldn't have gone to Valve. I get my clicks. I go back and I'm writing another story instead of fastidiously looking at betting logs for 6 months like some sort of maniac, like some insane person. Because I had to be right, because they'd impugned my reputation publicly. I had to get it right. The story had to end with me being right. My entire journalistic reputation was on that one fucking story because they'd said I was lying. So I had to go hard in the paint, like harder, like wait for the size and scale of the story, way harder than it deserved, because it was just it was obvious on its face what had happened. But it was a lifetime ban. Boom, you get hit with that. Now a lifetime is so disproportionate. I think there always has to be a way back, no matter what you do, unless it's like beyond egregious. You know what I mean? And match fixing one game once for about what would have worked out at like $400 each. Like, come on. I mean, maybe closer to 1,000, actually thinking about it. Whatever. The amount's not that. A small amount. A paltry amount of money. And that's it. Their career's over.
I think within context, like, you could argue one way or another whether that should have been the ban or not. But when you put it in context with, in comparison, all these other things are happening as well, I feel like that paints a different picture versus just the binary, banned or not banned, right?
Yes. And obviously as well, right? I mean, and I've said this many, many times. I don't think this is going to upset Valve any more or any less, because I've said this repeatedly. The first thing is, I said to Valve, why don't we look into this? Why don't we make a task force? I can tell you these accounts. These are the big betters. These are the people that are corrupting and influencing people to fix matches in CS. So why don't we use what I know about those accounts to trace all of the transactions, and then we get all the match fixes, ban them all. They never got back to me on that one. And then
basically should be going after the root of the issue as opposed to the surface level, which is the players in this case. Right?
Yeah, correct. I teach a course at university about sports corruption, and it's the same. We go back to ancient Rome, fixed wrestling matches. The Black Sox scandal. It's the same thing. It's people corrupting vulnerable players, and not always vulnerable, but more often than not they are. They have a vice, or they need the money, or they're hooked on gambling themselves. As we saw with the Tiger situation, and it's the same throughout history in every sport. And so we had a chance in CS to go back to these big whales that had hundreds, thousands of bot accounts that were just doing these mass bets on sites like CSGO Lounge, and they had pro players on their friends list, and they were getting all this intel and info. And it isn't even just fixing. I mean, players would get skins. Tell us how many hours this team's been practicing. Let us know how your scrims go. This whole industrial scale operation in CS all around fucking skins for match fixing. And so, a lifetime ban is unbelievably disproportionate, all things considered.
Ended up being 10 years, though, right?
Yeah, they revised it down to 10, but 10 years in esports might as well be a lifetime, right?
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Close.
As a player. Yeah. So, those guys got absolutely fucked. I mean, it was a disproportionate ban. 3 years would have sufficed. There's a road back with 3 years. And it's also very sizable.
Have you talked to any of the players like Steel since?
Yeah, we're buddies again now. We kissed and made up somewhere. Not that we fell out. It was just awkward. How can you walk into a room with each other again and be like, hey, buddy? And he's thinking, there's the guy who ruined my career. And I'm looking at him thinking, there's the guy that ruined his career. How do you walk that?
Because he's been working some CS events, I've been noticing.
Yeah, and we've talked about that, and I've said I hope he does a PGL. I'd love to do a desk with him. I think that would be good. That would be good healing and closure. I mean, shit, man. We nearly did that segment with me and Loda at Valahia, but his fucking alliance let us all down, and we were robbed of cinema, as the kids say.
Let's segue to that final story. So we'll preface this by saying we should definitely have Loda on at some point, Cinderin, as a guest.
I'd love to do a show with him, bro. This is the thing. Again, as you get older, you realize what is actually important and what matters, and when you were silly or foolish or full of your own hubris. You can look back at your life and see all of the opportunities you had to be a bigger and better person than you actually ended up being. And you can mentally correct it and how would you do things differently. But I also think that goes both ways. It's there are definitely some people out there that owe me apologies, particularly in the way that this was handled. But I don't think Loda is one of them. The only thing he did that he shouldn't have done is he took it public. This could have been all
start
worked
at the beginning,
out and no one would know the
because
story.
believe it or not, there's going to be a good amount of people that actually don't know what we're even talking about.
Okay, right. So I am DreamHack's main guy. I'm hosting for DreamHack. This is this is just how it's been. They're putting me on all sorts of games. As I said, I did a Heroes of the Storm event where I fucked up and pissed off Blizzard because they didn't have a pick and ban built into the game, and I didn't know that, and it was my first time hosting it. And I said, "What? We have a separate website for the pick and ban?" And the analysts were going, "Yes, Richard, of course we do. That's how it always works in Heroes of the Storm." And I went, "That's fucking stupid, isn't it?" No. So that was the beginning of the end of my relationship there. But anyway, DreamHack really liked me, But DreamHack was becoming a very different company in 2015. They used to be run by the Mad King, Robert Olin, who really gave me my start in the business. He was a beautiful, wonderful man. And, but, you know, like a lot of fun people, had his vices. Drinking was one of them for sure. And he ended up getting divorced from his partner, and he was worried about losing DreamHack in the divorce. So he transferred temporary control over to his dad, and the divorce went through. And then Robert Olin said, "Can I have DreamHack back?" And his dad said, "No, I run this shit now."
Wow.
And so all of the people that Robert Olin had hired, you know, were at this company, and Robert Olin wasn't anymore. And they were all very comfortable with what had happened. And so there was a lot of rats at this company. I mean, you have to understand, like, you know, these were not good people. These were not people that were going to stand by their guys. And I'd done their tour for fucking years. And when they, by the way, not that they should necessarily, but when they got bought by MTG or whatever it was for 60 million euros because their esports product was so good, do you think they ever reached out to any of the talent, the freelance talent that worked on their shows and said, "Oh, here's a little bonus, you know, here's a little attaboy thank"? Nah, of course they fucking didn't. I mean, maybe that's just the perils of being freelance, but I'd always stuck in my craw. I'm on every show for like nearly every game. I've done fucking StarCraft. I've done fucking CS. I'm doing Heroes of the fucking Storm.
Esports, I'm doing, Richard. Learn. Yeah. Esports.
I know. I never learn. That's the thing. I always think you put it out and it'll come back to you. What you have to realize is esports won't do that. The universe will do that. Right? That's what you have to remember. That's how I got Zen. That's
one day it'll come back.
Yeah. Esports runs contrary to the universe. That's what you have to understand. So anyway, I'm doing all of this shit. I'm their main guy. We're doing an event. I'm doing CS. It was like the Face It finals that was being put on at DreamHack, and Dream League is running parallel to this. And so the CS stage is like here, and the Dream League stage is here. Now, I'm good friends with a player called Hiko, a quite famous CS player who's now over in Valorant. Spencer's good people. I've always liked Spencer, always vibed with Spencer, and here's the problem. The iBuyPower stuff actually plays into the Loda stuff. The Loda thing wouldn't have happened without the iBuyPower ban, if you can believe that, right? Because what happened was Spencer was going to play on a team for Evil Geniuses with 4 of the iBuyPower guys. And so anyway, that was being negotiated behind the scenes, and I told Hiko, you might not want to play with them because Valve's going to ban them. And he said, "I think they're innocent, Richard." And I went, "Well, we'll see how this goes, man." So anyway, they ended up, not getting picked up for Evil Geniuses. Now, who works at Evil Geniuses / Alliance? The manager, Kelly Milkeys. And so Kelly Milkeys is Loda's girlfriend, quite famously. They may be married now. I haven't kept up. I didn't get the invite.
Shocker, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, she publicly had said Richard Lewis ruined these guys' careers and fucked over Hiko. And I'm like, I didn't. Surely I didn't. Surely the match fixers did. And I think because back then I was 2015 Richard Lewis and not 2025 Richard Lewis, I think I might have argued with her a little bit about it and said she was fucking stupid. I might have done that.
Yeah.
Right?
That would be a bad thing, yeah.
Yeah, because people don't like it when you push back, apparently. You've just got to take it over and over and over again. And the rules on social media are that people can say terrible things about you, but if you respond, that's unprofessional. That's where you've crossed the line. So again, I didn't know these things that I know now.
Hidden rules in esports you learn over time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I'm walking back from a great night, a great show. And it's been really fun. And I'm walking past the Dream League stage. And what do I see on the floor but this very sign? Right? And I don't know if you can see that. Proud Mom Hiko Go Liquid. I swear this is the original sign. I haven't had this recreated just for proof. It's got something about Neo on the back and Bulbasaur with a heart. I'm no frame of reference for this. Obviously, that's Neo, Philip Kubsky, the great Neo from CS. But anyway, this is the sign. I always kept it for reasons I'll say at the end. I see this sign on the floor. I assume Hiko's mother is here because it says Proud Mom Hiko. You see, I didn't know that there's a subset of esports management that determines that they're parents of the players that they look. I didn't know about that. Didn't know that was a trend, but apparently you might hear about, esports moms and esports dads, and really it's your general manager. I wouldn't use that parlance, but, each to their own. I see that. I say to the guys, I said, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a picture of this on my bed and say, I've just kicked the woman that was holding this sign up out of my bed and at Hiko at it. And it's a I fucked your mom joke. How very funny and edgy in 2015. Mm-hmm. And everyone else went, it's kind of lame. It's not a great joke. And I went, no, Spencer will love it though. So I'm going to do it. And they're like, yeah, well, whatever. Night, Rich. I go back to the hotel room, I sleep, I get up, it's the morning, I put the sign on the bed, take the picture, do the tweet, haha, I'm so funny, go and I do the show. Now, I'm getting tweeted at by Loda, saying, and again, I can't remember the exact tweets, it's so long ago, but I think they're still there. I don't think anyone's deleted anything from this time. And he says something like, oh, you think you're a big guy, eh? Talking about women. And, I was like, what the fuck's he? What's he jabbering about? It's a mom joke with my friend. Why does it involve this balding Dota player? Like, why would that be a thing? Right? So I'm not thinking of it. And then Kelly, I think, responded as well. And what I realize is that's Kelly's sign. And they have made the assumption I'm talking about having had sex with her and not this fictitious temporary manifestation of a friend's mother. And I'm like, but that's not what I said. So it's all very confusing. But I double down. I go into 2015 Richard Lewis mode.
I love this reference.
Because that's what you do, right? And Loda's like saying, I might come and see you later. Now, Alliance have been knocked out the tournament by this point. And so I said, you'll see me. I'm the one on stage. As in, lol, you're not going to play on stage. So I'm real easy to find. Anyway, Kelly Milkies comes backstage into the backstage area. And keep in mind, she's already publicly said that I ruined the lives of these players and, said these like monstrously stupid things about the obligations of a journalist reporting match fixing. And she's putting on this very obvious like fake smile, like she's got the Daenerys grin. And I'm in the middle of a show. I don't want to hear it. Now, as I've said to Cinderin and you, she started talking to me, and yes, she did try to broach the subject. And probably, if I just sat and listened, she probably would have said it was a big misunderstanding, but Loda's really upset, and maybe we could all like hug it out. It probably would have got there, because people don't like confrontation. But you know who does like confrontation? 2015 Richard Lewis, when he's fucking tired and doing a show. So I turned around and I said, oh, fuck off. Just fuck off, you stupid bitch. I don't want to hear it. Like, fuck off. I just said that. Now, she activated the superpower. She cried, and everybody saw her cry. And now I've made a girl cry. And now I do feel bad, right? Even though I don't believe it's genuine, it's never a nice feeling when someone gets emotional. And she walks off. I think like someone from Twitch or DreamHack or whatever fucking tell her to go. And I'm just sat there, right? Where's this going to go now? Okay. What's next? And what's next is Loda, who I don't really know. I've never met anyone in the Dota space. He's come from the opposite way backstage about like an hour later. And he's shouting, are you Richard Lewis? Like really loud, right? And he's walking towards me. Security are like, hi, Loda. I'm like, do you want to stop the shouty man in the backstage? No. All right, my bad. Are you Richard Lewis? And I'm going, are you Loda? Like, just like that. As he's walking towards me, because famously he always wore a cap because, the balding thing, and he was sensitive about it. He starts turning it backwards, like Fred Durst, as he's like walking towards me. And he gets close, and I'm just there. And then he gets a little bit closer, and he's telling me he's going to beat me up because I've like said I fucked his girlfriend, which I didn't, and now I've made her cry, which I did. So, by the way, at this point, I kind of fuck with it. You got to ride for the people you love, right?
2015 Richard Lewis, yes. Continue.
Yeah, it's 2015 Richard Lewis thinks you have to do this. This is fine, but unfortunately, you are now invading my personal space. Security are disinterested. Everyone behind me in the CS green room is laughing. They think this is all hilarious, right? Anyway, he puts his forehead onto my face, and then I've done this. Yeah, and like I say, there's people know, anything around the neck, people don't like it. You instantly do this. It's just a way to create separation. You would do it if you worked the doors or, whatever. Just that. And yeah, he left him 2 little red marks from the thumbs. It was round the clavicle. It's just one of those things you do. You just fuck off. Like, you aren't coming any further. I don't know who this guy is. I've never met him. I don't know if he's going to hit me, headbutt me. Don't know if he's going to pull a tool on me. Like, I don't know what this guy is capable of. Now, as we would later find out by having a conversation, turns out not very much. In fact, he's never really been in a fight ever in his life. He was just really, really upset and irate. And so, unfortunately, I had created a scenario in my brain that was very unlikely, right? But, I still think you have to protect yourself, Like, I stand by that what I did was self-defense. It might have been unnecessary self-defense, but it was still self-defense. Anyway, Hellspawn suddenly materializes. I don't even know where the fuck he came from. Adabisi, who used to be the talent manager, he comes out, and they're like getting between us. The security guard's going, but I earn my money, lumbering out of his fucking lawn chair that he's been sat in the entire fucking time. And anyway, like, Hellspawn is crying. He's crying.
For people that don't know who Hellspawn is.
He's like I don't even know. He was like the DreamHack. Fuck, he ran Dota. Basically, he was like he used to run a gossip website called Drakaka back in the day, and then somehow it was in Sweden, and then somehow he just hung around long enough for everyone to forget all the heinous shit they did. He got hired by DreamHack, and then he ran ELeague for some reason. I've never understood it. He's one of the most incompetent people in any field I've ever met, and totally unpleasant person to be around. Has no social skills.
I was looking for a one-liner, but sure, that works too.
Yeah. So anyway, he's crying. He's in tears. What did you do? What did you do? Everyone else, I'm like, well, I pushed him because he was like squaring up to me and that. Anyway, they then push me out of the side door. Okay, well, before they do that, Loda is like kind of there, and everyone's calmed down now. It's over, right? Except Hellspawn. He's inconsolable for some reason. I can hear Kelly just shouting somewhere, right? I can just hear the voice. She was furious. And anyway, they push me out. They say, right, Richard, don't worry. We're going to make this go away. Give us your phone. And I go, I don't know how comfortable I am with that, but okay, just give us your phone. We got to really keep a lock on this. All right. So they take away my phone and then they push me out into the snow, right? Like out of a side door, out of a fire exit. I can't get back in. I'm just in the fucking snow outside. It's a DreamHack winter or whatever. So I'm just there like snow pattering down. I'm out there for 15, 20 minutes. I come back in and the first thing they say to me is to hand me my phone. Oh yeah, Loda tweeted that you choked him. I'm like, well, you kept a fucking brilliant lid on that, guys. You really fucking kept the lid on this one. Now, it's my belief to this day that ultimately it was don't let Richard Lewis go first. Because Kelly, she was incandescent and she worked for Alliance/EG, back when they used to pretend they were two distinct different companies, but who had bought them? Twitch. And so what she had told DreamHack was, if I wasn't kicked or cut from the broadcast and removed from the building and arrested or whatever, right, like they were going to take away they wouldn't stream ELeague. She would personally see to it. So that was going on. Someone has called the police. I would also wager Kelly. And I come back in. Loda's tweeted about it. And now the police turn up. And now the police come in. They interview all of the CS people that saw it. They interview Loda. They interview me. They ask what happened. I say he walked towards me. He put his head here. I pushed him away. Everyone lost their mind. I'm expecting to get cuffed, right? Frankly, because in Sweden that probably does constitute assault and battery, right? Like in Britain that's nothing. But
it's the regular Sunday evening, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you start a Friday night. With your friends, and so they didn't cuff me. They said, having interviewed everyone, he was clearly the aggressor. You say you felt unsafe. You reacted accordingly. There's no further action to be taken on this, and they ripped it up. Now, people have told this lie that I got arrested. Kelly's publicly said that I can't go to Sweden anymore at one time. She tweeted that out. None of this is true. Like, I was never arrested. The police agreed with the assessment that it's self-defense. If there was any evidence I've committed a crime, it's not even about whether Loda wants to press charges or not. They would, the way the Swedish police work, they would be compelled to arrest me. But they didn't, because there wasn't a crime committed. So anyway, we're now left trying to deal with the detritus of this like nightmare that happened. And I walk up to Loda and I said, look, mate, I don't know. I thought you were going to fight me. And he went, no, I wasn't going to fight you. I don't fight. I was like, well, what were you thinking then? And he went, well, I just wanted to stand up for my girlfriend. I'm like, all right, fine, I get it, man. We shook hands. Kelly's still fuming. But me and him are cool as far as I'm concerned. I've always maintained that I have no problem with him. I never had a problem with him. Like, he shouldn't have fucking bitched about it publicly. Like, just tried to meet Richard Lewis and he choked me out, is what he said. It's like, that's not what happened, is it? That wouldn't happen, would it? That's silly. And then, anyway, I'm thinking we just go back to normal now. But the DreamHack guys are saying, if I stay in the building, their whole event could get shut down, which doesn't make any sense because the police haven't even arrested me. There's no crime being committed. So why would that make sense? They're saying I'm a safety risk. So they're telling me I can't close out the show. The Face It executives are saying, but it's our show at your event, and Richard Lewis will be closing out the show, which I did do. While all of this is going on, Graycon, another DreamHack employee, I think it was, they brought out like a telephone, like an actual phone, somehow. I don't even know where it was plugged into or whatever. It's super surreal. And they said, "Oh, will you take this call?" I pick it up, and it's Loda, and he's back at the hotel, and he's calling me up, and I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, bro?" And he's like, "Listen, having thought about it, can we all have an agreement that you're not going to tweet anything about this or say anything about this? Because I'm not very popular in the Dota community, and I think if you say bad things, this could really go on for a long time." And I'm going, but you tweeted it. I wouldn't have said anything. There's no need for this to go. We're having this back and forth. The DreamHack guys say, listen, we'll still hire you moving forward, but you have to sign this NDA. They've had like some boilerplate NDA printed out. Like this is how, I swear this is all true. It is so insane. Right. And I'm going, I'm not signing a fucking NDA. Like, I'll talk about I'm a freelancer. You made that abundantly clear. I will fucking talk about what I want to talk about on my social media platforms. And you don't get to control that. I'm not an employee. So I told them to stick the NDA up their ass. And then now that at that point, that's it. I've burnt the DreamHack bridge. And so the bottom line, I closed out the show. What didn't help was fans started coming up to me and asking if I would take pictures of me choking them. Which I obliged.
Of course.
And me and other CS talent were tweeting and retweeting these out. And the DreamHack management went up to all the CS guys saying, anyone who retweets anything of Richard Lewis's, particularly that picture, you're done with us. And so they all got deleted. But again, I kept mine. So anyway, I kind of knew at that point the relationship was over. Like, I didn't really like the direction the company was going in anyway. I felt they'd betrayed me. And while I acknowledge my own stupid behavior in all of this and how it could have been avoided, I don't think I was particularly well protected either. I think that's fair to say. And nothing happened to Loda. Nothing happened to Kelly. Everything happened to me. And my belief is ultimately I just got offered up to the big machine of esports. And that is that somebody had to be punished for what happened, but also not only punished, but punished in such a way as to show esports is normal and functional, and we get rid of our bad apples. And Richard Lewis is definitely a bad apple. And so, you think about the players in this: Twitch, via Alliance, Hellspawn, personal relationship with Loda and Kelly Milkies. He's in charge of Dream League. They just fucked me on that altar, man, and said a bunch of shit that isn't true. Like, if you go and read the reporting, Richard Lewis initiated contact. Was Loda doing anything in all of this, guys? No. No. The guy that published that on PC Gamer had like one of the piece of Dota content, and it was him interviewing Loda. And he was like a massive Alliance fanboy when you looked at like your social. I got absolutely fucked. Like I got absolutely fucked on that, no doubt. And again, that isn't to absolve myself. I recognize plenty of opportunity to get off the merry-go-round is stupid. Absolutely. Absolutely could have prevented it a million times over. Could have in the initial tweets said, I'm confused, Loda, what's wrong? And he would have explained, that's my girlfriend. And I would have explained, oh, I was doing it about this. I'm really sorry. Would you like me to delete the tweet? Would that make your feelings feel better? Yeah, that would actually. We could have done all of this. And like, it just doesn't happen. But again, back then, it was like, you know, it's esports, man. You have to carry it. It's like a mindset, you know, like you had to hold your corner. Like I can't really explain it better than that. Like it's esports. Everyone's a snake in 2015. Everyone's trying to take your job away. Everyone's spreading bullshit and rumors about you behind the scenes. And it just felt like such a fucking indignity that because he misunderstood a joke, I have to kiss his ass, kiss his girlfriend's ass. Like it back at the time, it was just something I wouldn't be willing to do.
Mm.
But now, who needs the drama? I would have just been like, yeah, sorry, my bad. Silly joke. Can I do anything? You know, like I'd be way more accommodating. But then,
so have you seen Loda since?
Multiple times. Saw him in Vegas for a PUBG event. He was very reticent to talk to me back then. But then at the most recent Valahia, we said, like, why don't we let the healing begin and do a death segment together? We bring Loda on, we shoot the shit a little bit, we make some fun and jokes about it. We literally have a big hug at the end, right? And then as soon as his head touches my face, no, I'm just kidding. Right? Just kidding. Those old reflexes are still there. No, it would have been really good for this, but unfortunately his team were bad and they didn't get through to the requisite segment of the show. For me, I think it's one of the most lied about events that has ever happened in esports. I think it is completely lied about, and it's very interesting because I've seen the Dota community now, like take for instance the Seneko thing that happened at Valahia with ATF. And how everybody basically said Seneko is wrong in this instance. And even though Omar can be a little bit spicy online, that doesn't give you the right to go up to people and get physical with them, touch them, intimidate them. I'm like, guys, you're agreeing with me. I'm Omar. I'm Omar in this example. You just spent 10 years gaslighting me and telling me it's the other way. I was sat there watching the whole Seneko thing pan out, going, well, surely everyone will be against the Mai. Oh, no. No. So it's like, it came down to a popularity contest as well. And Loda probably found the one person more unpopular than him in Dota. Right? Like, he actually managed it. And, you know, it's like, by the way, I love Loda's shit, man. Like, I think he's a funny dude, even when he's not trying. Like, he just says funny shit, man. I like him. I think he's made a stellar contribution to the game. I respect who he is. I respect who he is as a man. He tried to stand on business, right? Like, I fucked after 2015, Richard fucked with that. You know, it was never about that. But it was like everyone around him wanted to use it for something else, and it could have just been a fucking my bad. Like, this spiraled. Two dudes. We lost perspective. I'm really sorry. Hopefully I can make it up to you in the future if our paths ever cross. It could have been a spit and a handshake, and that's that. But instead, it became this thing. This part of the Richard Lewis mythology. And look, I know well, first of all, no one will see this episode because it will get downvoted into oblivion on Reddit. Right? How dare you have him on as a guest? They will say you'll lose patrons over this.
Yeah, maybe.
But you know, one of the other parts to it is like there'll be people that don't believe this version because this version seems way more fantastical than I actually said something bad about his girlfriend. He tried to fight me. We got into it. Like that is something that would have made sense. What actually happened doesn't make sense. But I advise everyone, whenever you think a story sounds like total bullshit, if it's about esports, it probably ain't. Because it is a deeply, deeply stupid industry populated by deeply incompetent people.
Yep, I can attest as one of those people myself.
Yeah, who are greedy and short-sighted and opportunistic. And it can be really, really stressful, which is another, not to make excuses for my own behavior. 2015 was a tough year, man. Like 2015, was very hard for me. I was getting a lot of shit about the Breitbart stuff. It was also the it was a tough year. It was a really, 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 really tough year, and we just had like I was under a lot of stress and a lot of fucking pressure, and I totally recognize I could have like gone back in time and handled it way better, but that still doesn't mean what I did was never as bad as how people made it out in the Dota community. It just wasn't. It never was. But it is what it is. I look forward to seeing Loda at future events, and I look
forward to the future content that you will have with him.
Yeah,
that sounds
exactly.
Legit.
But also, if you ever want to act as like weird, fucked up, belated esports marriage counselors and do an episode with both of us on just for the clicks, because it's all been said now. But like, I mean, fuck it, I'll come on for that as well. Like, I'm game. It's kind of one of those things. I just wish the community could have a little bit more of a sense of humor about it. Now, it was a silly thing that happened. No one really got hurt. It might be a terrible example of behavior, but I think it just stayed on the right side of the line. I don't think it was like completely irredeemably condemnable. If I'd punched him, yeah, absolutely. If it had, it was over very quickly. It was a flashpoint based on a misunderstanding, and all the parties, except maybe Kelly, but most of the parties were very quick to move on about it. So yeah, that's that. That's the great story. Oh, and the reason I kept the sign is it's just a reminder. This is what keeps me humble, this sign. Because that if I hadn't have been pre-hired by Turner, that would have been it. This sign would have been the end of my career. That would have been the last 10 years, would never have happened. And
gotta get that framed. Gotta protect that.
I take it out and look at it sometimes. I just sit there and stare at it, for hours, and just contemplate what could have been.
Man, really, really enjoy having you on the podcast, Richard. Your storytelling is second to none, and the fact that you have kind of this. I mean, I was a casual player, I guess, like from way back, but the fact that there's another person of relatively the same age that understands all these. Every time I bring up a fucking old reference like CGS or anything, Sinner is just like a robot, has no clue what's going on.
There's not many. By the way, I also understand
age thing.
I talked so much this episode, Cinder, that you barely spoke, and I just want to apologize.
Thank God
that's
for
great.
that.
It's a good change of pace. Don't worry.
I love listening to you talk, man. So
no, but this is one of the. Honestly, these are the episodes where Shannon earns his part. Are the ones with guests. That's where Shannon talks the most and I talk the least. And I say that with the biggest wink in my eye I possibly can, because Shannon does the majority of the prep for every other episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like, are you serious? I could see from your face you're like, are you fucking kidding me? No, Shannon's definitely carrying this podcast in terms of the prep and all the work that goes around it. I just talk a lot when we're on. So,
well, to be fair as well, he also doesn't traveling and going to events, so he has to do something.
That's right.
True.
He has to do something in the duo.
Working on a game doesn't take him very much time, as far as I'm aware. It's not really taking up much of his time.
You don't even have any funding for that game. How much can you do? The money dried up. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's true. It's not a game until you get the funding.
I loved your most recent video on the game. I think it's looking like it's getting closer and closer into a good place. And
appreciate it.
I genuinely wish you all the success, man, because it's like that's the one thing I'd always wanted to do in my career is like actually make something like that. But it's such a big risk and it's so stressful. Everyone I've ever met that's done stuff like that was like,
I was going to say they killed themselves, but yeah, I'm not going to go down that road.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, let's just say it's very, very stressful. It's hard.
Yeah.
Hard to keep perspective, So, I mean, Too Good will tell you all about that, James.
Yeah, I've definitely heard stories from him. Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate you coming on, Richard.
Thanks for having me. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
I hope so, too. Where can people find you? What kind of stuff are you doing?
I'm on this little website called x.com where there's not even any point in following me on Twitter anymore, if I'm being honest about it, because even though everyone says, oh, he's a man-child on Twitter, all he does is argue, I just post links to my work now and leave. There's just there's nothing to be won or lost over there anymore. It's like, it fell. So yeah, you'll see me at PGL events, and hopefully people will like the work I do there. But if you don't, that's also fine. That's cool. So I'll be around.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us again. Until next time, Suns Fan Center and Richard Lewis signing out. Goodbye.
Bye.
We say things that don't mean
Subscribe.
but thanks for listening.
All right, man. There you go. I hope there's a couple of good